I met some incredible people working for Arise News and also worked on some absolutely incredible stories, whether that was the Bataclan attacks, whether that was the Ebola outbreak, or whether that was making a documentary about the first female, first Black, first Asian Vice President, Kamala Harris. There was some truly incredible experiences, including reporting throughout the COVID-19 pandemic on what was happening right here in London, whether that was the deaths of Black and brown doctors or whether that was on kids struggling to go back to school, which included filming my own daughter homeschooling right here at home. It really was formative years in my career in journalism, and met some incredible people and did some incredible work. Can't believe it's been 10 years of Arise News, and here's to many more.
Knowledge is power. Information is currency. Trust us to tell you what you need to hear. Welcome to the program. You're with Arise News in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Breaking news, exclusive interviews, unrivaled analysis. It's you, the audience, who drives our agenda. We tell the stories that inform you, the stories that are important to you, and the stories that are about you. We are not every news channel. We are Arise News.
Good morning out there. You're watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
I'm Ayon Mairo Essing.
And I'm Rufai Osina. We've got a great show lined up for you for the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's kickstart your day because The Morning Show begins right now.
As the 2023 election in Nigeria draws closer, the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, is yet to resolve some internal crisis within its fold. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja yesterday extended the interim order it made on February 2nd, which restrained the People's Democratic Party and its leadership from taking steps to either suspend or expel the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, from the party. At the resumption of the suit, the judge ordered parties in the suit not to take steps that would render the court's judgment worthless. Also, Governor Wike stated that the G5, also known as the Integrity Group within the People's Democratic Party, is not running out of steam, adding that the group will act out its plan in the February 25, 2023 presidential election. Meanwhile, PDP's Presidential Campaign Council for Atiku Abubakar said the party has shelved its campaign rally in Rivers State to avoid bloodshed. The leading opposition party added that Governor Nyesom Wike has been undiplomatic through his actions and utterances. Joining us later on this show to discuss the PDP crisis ahead of the 2023 election is Dr. Daniel Bwala, spokesperson, PDP Presidential Campaign Council.
Moving things along, we shall be engaging Lucy Pearson, Country Director, British Council Nigeria, and Brenda Fashugba, Heads of Arts, British Council Nigeria. Both ladies will be discussing the British Council's Creative Economy Showcase program, which aims to stimulate links among Nigerian creatives. Also, we will bring you the part 2 of Arise at 10 documentary.
Let's catch up on news making headlines across the globe. Michael Wilson will give us an update on global business outlook, while Ruth Sodiri updates us on Africa business activities across the continent. We'll also review today's newspaper with Arise News analyst Malola Fen. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. All right, welcome back to the morning show right on the Rise News channel. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The presidency yesterday disclosed that neither the federal government nor the central bank has taken a preemptive position on the legality of the old 200, 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes in view of the case pending before the Supreme Court, which comes up for hearing today. In a statement by its spokesperson, Malam Garba, the presidency said the federal government's position on the currency swap will be made public after the termination of the suit. The statement said, following a series of inquiries, we wish to state that it is not true that the federal government or the CBN has taken a preemptive action on the legality of the currency as a legal tender in view of the pending case before the Supreme Court. However, the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, says calls for the extension of the deadline for the circulation of old naira notes are unnecessary. Emefiele met with diplomatic community in Abuja on banks' monetary and currency design policy. He says the problem of the naira scarcity is gradually easing off. He acknowledged the suffering of Nigerians and said the effective implementation of policy could scrap 4% off the inflation numbers. POS agents who charge above 200 naira as commission for the cash trap will be arrested and jailed.
There is tremendous tension and elevated agitation by our leaders who should be becoming freed names by the citizens. We believe that a large proportion of these agitations are staged, they are sponsored propaganda, or an exaggeration of the reality. No doubt, there are pockets of pressures in some areas. The CBN is working hard to shift pressure, to shift resources to those areas in order to ease the tension. The situation is substantially calming down since the commencement of the over-the-counter payment to complement ATM disbursements and the use of super agents. There is therefore no need to consider any shift from the deadline of February the 10th. POS agents that we thought should help us also deepen financial inclusion, are getting involved in this kind of unfortunate, unscrupulous activities. And we have told the EFCC, the ICPC, working with our CBN monitoring team, to arrest any POS agent that charges any fee, because we had made it clear that whatever is their fee, which is not meant to be more than 200 naira for any amount you exchange, that we, Central Bank, we will pay as part of the cost to lessen the burden of this problem. And let me make it clear, and I'm sure the press is listening to me, we started to arrest them. We will prosecute them, and they will go to jail for getting involved in illegal activity and making our work difficult.
Right, a lot to talk about, Aya.
Yes, this is a very important clarification. I thought it was really important because yesterday there was a bit of a conundrum as to what is really going on. Is the deadline still on course, or is the federal government and the CBN going to obey the Supreme Court's ruling exactly a week ago, the 8th of February 2023? Indeed, we actually talked about it yesterday. Dr. Bati mentioned the fact that some institutions had started to reject old notes, and they were telling people who brought in old notes that they were not going to accept this. And so people were quite confused. In fact, I was listening to a chat this morning where people in the makeup room were talking about the fact that they had challenges even with vendors. Even with vendors, refusing to collect. I'd shared my experience in some stores, even as of yesterday, putting out notices that we do not collect old notes anymore. The airport, international airport, right as you're driving in, they're telling you we're not collecting old notes. So these clarification was very important to happen. So the federal government has now come out to state that they are not going to be preemptive. They will wait for the ruling of the Supreme Court today, which is stated for today, and whatever the Supreme Court says, they'll obey. However, beyond this was also that conversation before the diplomatic call by the CBN governor himself. In terms of speaking directly to the ruling, wisely perhaps he hasn't said anything, but has spoken about some of the challenges that they have faced in terms of the circulation of the Naira notes. Nigerians are suffering. The queues are still there across the country, not just in Lagos or commercial, cities like Abuja, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, but even in rural areas, in the hinterlands, people in the markets, people with small businesses are complaining about the fact that there's scarcity of notes. Yet, some political figures, whom some CSOs have called the G10, 10 governors have been said to be mopping up the cash in circulation, so that the people who are most in need of this cash are being deprived because there's some saboteurs in high places. These are the conversations that Nigerians need to begin to have and ask questions. Who are these political figures who are taking in cash, buying cash from the banks, speaking to banking agents to get this money to be able to induce voters in the coming election? Who are these bank officials who are enabling this act by actually selling these notes to them and depriving the man on the streets from having access to his money and frustrating the efforts of the CBN to effect a money policy that they have evaluated as being for the good of Nigerians and for the banking system as a whole? These are questions and conversations we must have. I'm looking forward to the ruling of the Supreme Court, but we must pay very close attention to what the CBN has assured. There's no need for a deadline. Things can work if people are ready to make it work.
Dr. Watu?
Okay, there's no doubt that the policy and the execution of this Naira design policy has caused a lot of disruption. Small businesses have complained, farmers have complained, politicians have complained. And the major issue is that these new notes are not available. The banks are not making the notes available. People cannot have access to the new notes. And then they are faced with this deadline that the CBN announced. It's so bad that, in fact, in one instance, we were told that a family rejected the money brought by a suitor as bride price because it was presented in old notes. The money was returned. If you want our daughter, you bring new notes. Yesterday, in Akure, protesters went to the premises of the central bank and took over the place. It had to take the deployment of security agencies to maintain the peace. In Benin, the premises, the headquarters of the CBN in Benin, Edo State, was set ablaze last week. In Abeokuta last week, there was a protest. Yesterday, people also took over the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, blocked both sides of the road along that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway leading towards Songwater. So it's causing a lot of agitation. It therefore makes sense that the CBN governor took it upon himself to address the diplomatic corps at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, because the international community, in the lead up to the elections, they're already beginning to talk about, the Naira scarcity in Nigeria, the fuel scarcity in Nigeria could affect the elections. So what the CBN governor did, that is in order, is to carry along the international community and to tell them what the issues are. Those issues we've repeated ad nauseum, and he himself has done the same, in trying to explain the policy and the fallouts and the effect and the importance to the general public. However, I took notice of one thing that he said yesterday. One, that politicians are behind this scarcity, that they are mopping up the currency notes. Okay, why is it that the Nigerian government has not arrested any of these politicians, if they are known? Because the CBN is working with the EFCC, the ICPC. By now, some of these politicians should have been named and shamed. Two, the CBN governor also pointed out that miscreants, it's not just ordinary people, that you see at those ATM machines, that miscreants take over to take advantage. They help to secure positions on the queue. Okay, the banks themselves, what are they doing to make sure that their premises are not taken over by miscreants? Number three, the POS retailers, the POS operators, okay, they are making a premium. That's the way it is in Nigeria. Anytime there is a policy, Nigerians try to beat it, some people try to profit from it. I think there should be consequential action beyond the CBN governor just saying they will be arrested and jailed. When we begin to see consequential action in these respects, we will understand. But there are other important issues. You refer to the statement issued by Garuba Shehu, saying that the president, the government will comply and will only take a decision after the CBN that is hearing the matter of AG Kaduna and two others still want to join, versus AG Federation with regard to the Naira design policy. The CBN had granted an ex parte motion, an injunction, saying that the February 10 deadline cannot stand and that the old notes should still be in circulation. But a strange thing happened yesterday, the same day, when the CBN governor now said the deadline has passed. That looked like it was in open defiance of the Supreme Court. And that would set a bad precedent because the CBN cannot overrule the Supreme Court of Nigeria. The Supreme Court's powers to be for its orders to be obeyed are properly spelled out in the Constitution. Section 232, Section 257. And as Femi Falana, SAN, has argued extensively, also yesterday, the CBN cannot claim that it's an independent body under Section 2B because Falana argues that there are decided cases of Bevere versus CBN per Rosebible, GSC as it then was, and also Fayoshe versus EFCC versus EFCC per Dongman Mensam, JCA as she then was. Now she's president of the Court of Appeal. To say that that independence that is talked about is a lame link because the CBN is an agent of the government. But whatever it is, you cannot overrule the Supreme Court of Nigeria. So I see the statement by Garuba Shehu. I have not checked which one comes in terms of the order. I see it as an attempt to do damage control because the CBN cannot overrule the Supreme Court. However, the matter will be heard today. And whatever the Supreme Court decides, the Supreme Court can extend this order. It can take the matter. And what everybody will remember is that the Federal Government Act said that it will respect the order of court. And that is what is important in this matter. There are CSOs, civil society organizations, 472 of them, who came out yesterday and protested against politicians. I still repeat, those problematic politicians causing the problem should be identified. They are not from Mars. They are here, and they are going to be part of this election.
I said yesterday, a nation that values privilege over virtue and purpose will soon lose both. Nigeria has become that nation, classical case. It is always about the privilege of the big man, and that's why they can connive with banks, get money for their own interest, political interest. I also say, all of this is happening because politicians are mopping up cash and the system has been so corrupt that people can get their way. We hear all sorts of methods, as much as some politicians transferring 140 million naira to be able to get 100 million cash. New notes. Now that the POS operators are having a field day, they too are not talking any longer, but I'm happy the CBN governor said it's illegal. There's a court order on ground. Let us respect it. It is our Supreme Court. Because if we violate our Supreme Court order, then we are opening the floodgates of anarchy in our country. But we all remember how this started. And that's why our politicians should truly put their word or their money where their mouth is and show they care for the people and stop all these shenanigans they are doing against the people. A Naira policy was announced last year. Couple of months after the Naira policy was announced, at first they said the CBN governor was charged for terrorism, should be charged for terrorism. Secondly, we know how that went. We know how they tried to arrest him. We know what went on. These same governors exhausted everything possible. They went to meet the president. They got the first extension. When they see the first extension was about to wrap, what did they do? They went to the courts. They reneged against and this was after they went to meet the president, but the president said, give me 7 days. So they disrespected the man because they wanted to get their way. So they got their way with the courts. Now they've had many join the suits. We'll see what the Supreme Court will rule. We need to respect the rule of law. But the politicians should remember that they are no gods. And Dr. Abati, the answer to your question, in this country, where we have amplified politicians so much that they trump the order of things, if any key politician is named, wouldn't his surrogate say it's a political witch hunt? We all see the case of some that are even going to address certain security agencies. How some people have spun that story based on what they said. A nation that values privilege over purpose and virtue will soon lose both. Nigeria is losing it, and we must stand tall for this nation. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rotu Sodiri Michael with us to give us updates on global and Africa business activities. Stay with us.
Best hopes for Nigeria are achievable. By every measure, Nigeria can be a better, stronger country. We can be a nation at peace, a place of shared prosperity where everybody is somebody, and equal justice under the law is enjoyed by all our citizens. In a few weeks, our country will go to the polls to elect political leaders and a president to lead our nation for the next 4 years. This is the most consequential election of our time. And we have it in our power to make the choice that allows us to achieve the grand possibilities of what Nigeria can be. Our path to greatness lies in recognizing the abiding truth that in a time of promise and peril such as this, the best thing we can do for Nigeria is to elect a leader with an established track record of achievement who has proven time and again his ability to triumph through adversity and succeed against the odds. In this election, that man is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now let me tell you about Asiwaju. This majestic yet profoundly imperfect democracy we have today is the legacy of men and women who in the years after 1999 used the instruments of law, politics, media, and advocacy to keep this country from becoming a one-party state dominated by the personality cult of one individual. Asiwaju was at the forefront of that effort in every way. At the same time, he was governor of Lagos State, Nigeria's smallest and most populous state, a beacon attracting talent and ambition in droves. As governor, Asiwaju initiated and implemented reforms that have allowed the state to continue to develop and thrive despite its unique challenges. No candidate in this election has a better track record of identifying and elevating talented young people across every walk of life like he can. Our country's political and economic landscape is filled with men and women who have benefited from climbing the ladders of opportunity built by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. His campaign for president today is powered by these same people. Fellow Nigerians, our country can be better, and it will be. For that, we need a president who will deliver a new program of democracy, prosperity, and national security. We need a president who will invest in public infrastructure as part of a broader strategy to drive human capital development and create economic opportunity. We need a president whose clarity of vision is untainted by the pervasive cynicism that abounds in this historical moment. We need a man whose extraordinary leadership gifts are evidenced by the abundance of talent he has nurtured through the years and his capacity to overcome challenges in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. We need a leader with uncommon courage and audacity. We need a president who will assemble the best team and empower them to do the hard work of making Nigeria the best it can be. We need a leader whose administration will appeal to the hopes of those who still believe in the dream and promise of one nation, bound in freedom, peace, and unity. A leader who will lift our gaze from the consideration of small things to focus on pursuing and achieving grand ambitions that lift us all and save the future. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the man for the moment. I have seen him through the years connecting with people from all walks of life, bearing their burdens and paving the way, and testimonies abound in this regard. I invite you to join him on this inspired mission to build a nation where we harness the faith, optimism, and confidence of the Nigerian people to overcome all cynicism, defeat all fear, and achieve the best ambitions we have for ourselves and the country we so love. Thank you, and God bless you, and may He forever bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get into the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, we vote. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business, we vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
My daughter-in-law, so how are you planning for my son's birthday? You have to cook for her. Do you people have ogirisi there? No. It's okay. Okay, let me call you back. Mama Chiji, okay. Hi, so wait a market. Please pack some ogirisi. Achi, Opo, Azumbasa. I am going to visit my son. My daughter-in-law. It's arranged, but you must use original red oil to prepare the soup. What? It's very scarce. I'll call you back. Mama Chijo, please include Isio Morocco. My daughter-in-law. Everything is now set. But don't forget that gold wristwatch I saw the last time I visited.
With 11 kobo per second calls to all networks, the only thing you run out of are things to say. Get a Glow SIM or dial *777# now.
That's it, Bobo.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For global business updates, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, the watchword I think this morning is inflation. Certainly those hotter than expected and hotter than needed US inflation figures overshadow the Asia Pacific markets this morning. Hong Kong down about just almost 2%, Shanghai down about 0.2%. Again, just really worrying about what effect it's going to have on long-term interest rates, basically. As far as China's concerned, some news out of there. The economic recovery, as far as China is very, very slow. Apparently, the economy is not firing on all cylinders after the holiday. And official data show, whilst they do show a year-on-year growth in loans to business, loans to households are actually falling back. So basically, we're still searching for clues as far as China's recovery is concerned. A lot depends on it, because I talk about it every morning, and it's absolutely true. Not just commodities, but the whole of the world really is looking to see whether or not its tepid start to 2023 actually is going to accelerate at all. I talked a little bit about Singapore yesterday. They were expecting their budget. The finance minister there has said, he's been interviewed yesterday, he's talking about a very delicate balancing act between helping people who have been hit by the pandemic and also by, but the economy is sort of back to pre-COVID levels, but it has a way to go. Inflation is still relatively high. So let's talk about the United States. States, where all those worries really started yesterday. Inflation rose 0.5% in January. That's 6.4% year on year. And again, you don't need me to tell you the kind of pressure now that this puts on the Fed, because what they've got to worry about whether or not they want to damp inflation down. It's slightly higher than expected. It didn't. The start did not peak the month before last as expected, and the bets now are on a 0.25% increase in interest rates when the Fed next meets. Today, retail sales in the United States will show what consumers actually think. Now, the sort of US-China balloon spat, whether these are spy balloons or these things which have been actually shot down, has now moved into supply chain territory. In other words, people worried about rising tensions between the two countries, and more migration towards Vietnam and the Philippines as far as supply chains are concerned. So just basically adding to the general feeling that the US and China are sort of moving apart as far as geopolitics are concerned. Good news from Boeing, though, despite a fall of orders in January, they got now, if this actually happens, this will be immense. This is Air India's, it's a record order of 220 Boeing planes, 250 Airbus planes. Now, Air India is really actually now saying, we think that air travel is back, and we think that tourism is back too. Airbnb results from them yesterday would more or less confirm the idea of tourism. Earnings are rising. Trade is rebounding. This is obviously the shared accommodation company. Shares were up about 11% as a result of this, but it does show that tourists are willing to travel, if it's only at the moment cross-border, but tourists are travelling and spending. As far as the UK is concerned, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, again, the public sector strikes keep going. There are rumours this morning of a pay deal which will be backdated, and this, talking about the NHS ambulance drivers and the rest of it, this is the worst bout of public sector strikes for more than a decade. And of course, we still go through a cost of living crisis in the UK. UK now, going to the Royal Mail, as you know, it's been a victim of various hackers and so on. They demanded £65 million. Negotiators apparently for Royal Mail said, no way, that is absolutely not going to happen. And as you ought to know, the Royal Mail, there's nothing here but losses. That's what they're saying to the hackers right now. But that sort of thing continues. We've had inflation figures from the UK. We talked about wages yesterday. Wages are not keeping pace with inflation. It's fallen very, very slightly to 10.1% year on year. The latest figures just out. What this will do for the March 23 meeting, perhaps a 0.25% rise as well, who knows? And also, of course, March the 15th, the budget there. In the UK as well, Ford is going to cut 1 in 5 jobs, 3,800 across Europe, 1,300 in the UK, again because of falling demand and also because of its transition to electric vehicles. And finally, on this global roundup, oil down basically on demand risks, and it's hard for it to muster a rally as we speak. That is the global view this morning.
Real quickly, I wanted to bring something to your notice yesterday, and good to see you again, Michael, about the fact that now we have a glut in the chip market. A lot of the chip producers produce so much chips because during COVID, people were staying at home. They had to buy devices and use devices and all of that. But now that you don't have enough demand for those things, it's just stocked there in their warehouses. So I want you to talk me through this vis-a-vis the chip war going on between America, China, and Taiwan, and the Netherlands, I hear, is coming into the fray now as regards all of this. With this glut, stop the ramping up of chip production because Joe Biden still wants to produce more chip, but no demand for it currently because the excess that was produced during COVID has not been taken up.
I'm with you on the doubt about this. I mean, it is difficult to define, isn't it, when there appears to be a glut, and yet, as I was saying, you know, the supply chain atmosphere between US and China appears to be drying up very, very slightly, and people moving away from people who want chips moving away from China and looking towards the Philippines and Vietnam. It's very, very difficult to say. I think the only sense to be said about it right now is the fact that those chips are not necessarily where you want them. I think that's. I mean, I follow what you're saying about the mystery of it, Rafai. But the problem is, I don't think anybody knows. I just feel as though there is a problem with supply chains. There is disruption, and if you haven't got those chips where you want them, then there will be a shortage at the end of the supply chain. I think that's where we are right now. It's very complicated, though.
All right, thanks, Michael. I'd just like you to examine a bit further the Singaporean budget 2023, which was presented by the Finance Minister, Lawrence Wong. One thing that caught my interest, obviously, was the number one, tax incentives for more charity giving, and of course, this is to push or to upskill a more robust economy post-COVID. Also, interestingly, the paternity days, number of grants, or the compensation for fathers who would like to take 4 weeks postpartum after the birth of a child, for 2 weeks extra added. How has that, or how does that impact on productivity in the workplace? And of course, the tech responses, a few human resources updates there in terms of the budget.
I think that the Singapore economic story is almost close to a miracle, isn't it? Over the past 20 years, what the finance minister is actually saying is that, of course, they want to bring more productivity in the workplace with all the measures you've just been talking about. But I think also there is this big feeling about fiscal rectitude as well, and that's what the delicate balancing act has got to be. I think, though, Singapore is far ahead of most nations as far as productivity is concerned, and what you've been describing can only help. But I like it when finance ministers talk about how difficult their job is, because there is no point in glossing over how difficult it is to start an economy which apparently, as I was saying earlier, apparently is at pre-COVID levels now, which is not bad, is it? But this is all couched in terms of fiscal rectitude. It all sounds very vague, but I can see exactly what he's saying. He's got his hands, it seems to me, I mean, time will tell, as they say, and that worst sort of journalese. But the fact of the matter is that I think that Singapore appears to be going about it in the right kind of way, i.e. not overstimulating, but not understimulating either. And I think increasing productivity by these kind of means can only mean good things for an economy.
Well, quickly, Michael, two things. Would the Federal Reserve cut interest rates, given the stubbornly high inflation that has been reported? And will it do this, considering the very robust, very positive job figures reported in January? And whatever decision it takes, what are the odds? Now, second, you talked about supply chain diversification, which many of the manufacturers are now talking about, taking advantage of new places in India, in Vietnam, as you mentioned, and also in North America, under the new NAFTA code. But the issue is, can China really be ignored? Considering the fact that China has big market, big population, and for any of these manufacturing companies, beyond the politics and trade tensions, for them to be able to make substantial profit, they will still need local presence inside China. What do you think?
What I think is that China is not the edifice that most people think it is. I think it's got its own problems. I was saying earlier in my report that it is not the economy is certainly not firing on all cylinders yet. We don't know the exact damage that the COVID lockdowns have actually achieved. And I think that the thing about trade is, and we've talked about this, it seems now for months, doesn't it? That what happens is nothing happens overnight, So the United States, as it is doing, can posture and say, "Look, are we going to onshore a lot of these, or reshore, as they put it now, a lot of these activities, or move them away from away from China rather, towards India and Vietnam and Philippines and all the rest of it again. And this is how supply chains are working right now. This is how manufacturing is working right now. It's very, very difficult to just put a stop, as it were, on trade, because it won't happen. China needs the rest of the world as much as we need China. And I think whilst it's trying to restructure itself, and there are all sorts of problems which we've noted in the past as well. I mean, we haven't heard about the property sector for some time. We know that loans have been increasing towards business, but they have not been increasing towards consumers. So I think what you're seeing there is a very mixed picture. And I think the trade negotiations, such as they are, the tit for tat and all the rest of it, it proceeds very, very slowly indeed. I don't think it's possible to put a measuring tape over what's going on right now. I feel as though, let's put it like this. I don't think that China is simply is either a spent force or a coming force. It's something which is reassessing itself given the big COVID lockdowns and the effect it had on their own manufacturing. So, I mean, you cannot disregard it, but I suspect, and I can only more wonder about this, I think it'll be a different shape China that we need to deal with.
Well, I asked you whether the Fed will cut interest rates.
I would, yeah. I think the Fed will. I mean, the noises are from the Fed and also the members of that committee. The noises this morning are, the fact is we don't think that inflation has peaked. We're still worried about it, but we are still being very, very careful indeed. What I sort of think, and the noises are coming out of the Fed, is they're still relatively hawkish, which means no reduction in interest rates, certainly.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning to all our viewers. So the central bank put out just some clarifications on depositing old notes. Remember, that's extended to the 17th. So you've got, just to remind people, this is a cash deposit, not a cash swap. You can only deposit cash at CBN centers that are designated across the country. Third-party deposits are not allowed. You can't do it on behalf of somebody else. It's only for you and you alone. You have to complete an online form and get a reference number from the CBN portal in order to do so. This cash deposit window is up from today until the 17th. And it's from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. There are requirements as far as what's going to be required for that. You have to get the reference code that's been completed from the online form that's on the CBN portal. You have to have an active bank account. You have to have your BVN, your bank verification number, and a valid federal government issued ID. I am, like everybody else, waiting to see what happens with the Supreme Courts because the CBN is guided by the CBN Act. And if the Supreme Court is going to dictate to the central bank what it does on currency, then it might as well just dictate what the MPC decides at the Monetary Policy Committee. So if the Monetary Policy Committee decides to raise rates by 100 basis points,
take it to Supreme Court. Stop the Supreme Court and
reduce the rates. Yes. Look, hey, I don't like lending rates in Nigeria. We want to borrow money. Look at the standard lending facility. Rates are 30%. Supreme Court, can you bring the lending rates down to 9%? Yeah, exactly. Single digits, Supreme Court. Can the Supreme Ways and Means? Yeah, Supreme Court rule on Ways and Means as well. Can the Supreme Court determine the exchange rates? Can you bring the exchange rate to $1 to $1? So this will be very, very interesting to see where the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court lies with monetary economics on issues of currency and so on. Can't wait to see what happens. The Manufacturing CEO's Confidence Index from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria for Q4 2022, the threshold is 50 points. It's kind of like the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index. Anything above 50 is expansion, anything below 50 is contraction. But this is with confidence for CEOs in the manufacturing sector. So there was a dip from 55.4 to 54. Essentially, manufacturers, they are facing a whole number of issues. Right? Look, yesterday was Valentine's Day. Our cards, we look at paper mills, we import our cards. Kenya and Ethiopia lead Africa in terms of exporting flowers. They make a lot of money on Val's Day. We're not able to do that. So agriculture is a bit there, manufacturing, they've got a lot of issues with respect to that. Speaking of manufacturing, I think Michael Wilson already touched on that UK Airbus India deal. right? The UK put this graphic out with respect to Airbus Rolls-Royce deal as part of this Air India order. It is massive. I mean, while we're talking about manufacturing, they have manufacturing hubs for plane parts in parts of the UK. So Rishi Sunak himself put out a statement. What's her name? Kemi Badenoch, with her new position, put out. I mean, if you think about the lessons to learn with what's been going on with Air Nigeria and so on, Air India, they are not playing. I mean, massive deals. So you've got Boeing that's involved, the other plane, the US is there. Biden got on the phone with Modi. You got Airbus, what's his name? Macron was involved there. Then you've got this deal with the UK, and jobs are being created along the way. So, you know, no noise making, no nothing. They've just moved forward and announced it. And it is massive. While we're talking about manufacturing, what it's done for the hubs as far as manufacturing of plane parts in the US, Europe, UK, and so on with this deal from Air India. Since we're talking about flying, President Buhari, inflation. I have to touch on inflation. We're expecting inflation figures later today. I think it eased to 21.34 in December, so we're expecting January numbers. I think with the fuel scarcity and how it's impacted prices, I think I'm expecting inflation to continue to be elevated. So I don't think we'll see a dip. I think we might actually see an increase because January was really, really tough. But we'll see what the numbers pull out there. Then President Buhari was on the phone with the president of the UAE. I think he lost his mother-in-law, so the president was, a condolence call. That's Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, and he also appealed to him to remove the blanket ban on Nigerians, talking about the relations between both countries. So, I mean, Garbashir put out that point there. I don't know what the decision is going to be. But just to show you, I saw something on TikTok. You guys need to take a listen to this about how Nigeria, what they say was served breakfast with regards to visa restrictions in 2022. Take a look.
We don't cast, last, now everybody go to breakfast.
And even on the visa notes, recently Eritrea and Kenya made an announcement very recently that they've abolished visa restrictions between both countries. Here's both President Mr. Ruto and President Mfweki of Eritrea.
Facilitate growth in trade and connectivity between our people and our business. We have agreed to abolish the requirement of visa permanently, effective today. In this regard, we have instructed our ministries of Interior to work on the modalities for the ratification of this directive. I will open a diplomatic mission representation in Asmara, and I have consequently instructed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to commence the process of operationalizing this directive immediately. Your Excellency, this will build into our desire as a region to create more connectivity, more networking, to enhance business, to enhance investment, to enhance trade.
We'll have to recoup our lost opportunity and work better in a very refined manner so that we can move faster and achieve what we have lost the last 2 decades and maybe more. Once again, I think this joint statement you have made is enough to explain what we are about. One very significant thing this morning, you talked about IGAD, your suggestion that we need to reconsider our membership to IGAD. I readily said no question about that.
All right, so trade, very important, and visa restrictions, yeah.
I mean, it's so sad that Kenya have those breakfasts. It's really sad, because a lot of people, good old days of just touching down at the JKI, Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, and just paying about $50 and you get your visa and you get in. It's just sad. But you see, when countries serve you this, it's based on your own local economy and what your citizens do in other countries.
Very true.
Because in my lifetime, I have seen the timeline change from the way UK used to treat China back in the 90s to how they treat Chinese passport owners today. Yeah. I saw it literally happen in my lifetime. Like, I saw it happen.
You sound like you are like a 70-year-old.
No. Because the funny thing is, in my also lifetime, I've seen how terrible things have become as regards Nigerians and visas.
Right.
In the space of how many years Kenya has done this to us. So we should check ourselves internally. This country is a great country. But I think maybe once the new leader is sworn in, we'll be able to have a talk with Ruto. He can't do this to us. I mean, and the other countries who can't do this to us. But I'm really excited you started stretching that thing as regards the Supreme Court. Because that's what it now looks like now, with this precedence hitherto set. And I'm sure a lot of people, too, just for the life of me, will challenge across the court, even when inflation numbers come out.
Yeah, exactly. We say,
because that's what it has become. These are monetary policies. We shouldn't have politicized it in the first place. I'm happy PMI numbers are looking good, but we can still do a lot more for the manufacturing sector. And need I say more, Rotus? Leaders of nations take their business leaders in their hands and go to sign deals for them. That's what they do. See the impact on the economy of the UK. The Rolls-Royce deal, is going to come to Bristol because Rolls-Royce has got a big plant in Bristol and around that Somerset area. Even see what Macron did as regards the AUKUS deal with Australia. Buying submarines from them. See how he put his foot on the ground. And even when America got the deal, he was so upset with Joe Biden. So leaders fight on trade, but here, I hope this is the thing our new leaders that will be elected will do.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So just to talk about the fact that we have visa restrictions in Africa when we are trying to promote the ethos of the African Continental Free Trade area, where we're supposed to be actually opening up our borders for easier trade. So beyond the impact of tourism visits, is also the impact on businesses across countries in Africa, particularly for visa on arrival, moves to ensure that we have a better opportunity for investors or perhaps business partners across countries. So this is quite unfortunate. I'm glad that the president is speaking to the UAE. This has gone on for a bit longer. I know that in part of the conversations, I didn't think as well. I found it quite odd that I was calling him to commiserate with him on his mother-in-law's death. So I can see perhaps there was a bigger reason for this call. And in that call is also to the fact that he promised in terms of the repatriation of funds, which had been a key issue
for Emirates,
for Emirates for this ban. So that's important that he's addressing this. I hope that there will be a conclusion to this matter favorably in the very near future.
But real quick, he's talking about repatriation of funds for FX for Emirates. He's the Minister of Petroleum, right? And he has overseen oil theft that has reduced our foreign exchange that we're able to earn, which if there wasn't oil theft in place, you would have the foreign exchange to give to Emirates so that Emirates wouldn't, so it all comes around.
Talk about consular relations. Consular relations is an important part of diplomatic relations. And every country, as a sovereign, has a right to make its own decisions, to choose its own friends, and to take decisions. And the basic principle that guides diplomatic and consular relations is the Vienna Convention on the matter, which provides the rules. So even while countries can make their own choices, they are also governed by the principle of reciprocity and civility, and the rules are set out in the convention. That's number one. Number two, with regard to Kenya and Eritrea, now say, we want to promote trade, we want to promote diplomatic relations. It's very important. Kenya and Eritrea are both members of a group, a trading bloc called IGAD. But in 2011, when you had that attack in Kenya, that terrorist attack, the Kenyan authorities accused Eritrea of sponsoring Al-Shabaab terrorists to come and use Kenya as a theater of war. But since then, relations have improved between both countries, particularly also due to the efforts of Afewaki, to try to improve relations with the Kenyan authorities. And we see President Ruto and President Afewaki coming together. That's number one. Number two, as for Nigeria and UAE, there are issues that need to be addressed. Emirates, not coming to Nigeria is because the issues they raise about Forex have not been resolved. And they are not alone in this regard. There's also the issue of the interest of the airline operators of Nigeria, which is part of the conversation. But the best that President Buhari can do is to say that he will look into these issues, right? But it doesn't mean it's automatic. It's just diplomatic talk. As for the Supreme Court, don't let us trivialize the issues. The Supreme Court is not, your regular court. It's a common law court. It's a policy court. It's not necessarily a court of equity. It's just that in law, there's usually that confusion, between policy and equity. And it's not only in the Nigerian jurisdiction that you have that kind of problem. Yeah. The issue we have now with this is that people talk about Supreme Court, even when they don't understand the issues. Now, the issues for determination that are in the front burner will include, for example, should the CBN have been joined? 2, is the CBN actually independent under Section 2B and the other relevant sections, Section 4, Section 6, Section 19 of the CBN Act? So these will be issues that the court will determine when the matter goes again before it today. So it's not for us to prejudge the court. True. Right. It's not for us, to insult their lordships, even when we don't know the details. Most of the people who comment on it have not even read the details. But it's okay.
What do you think the outcome will be?
No, I can't prejudge. I can't prejudge the court.
I got you.
That will be contentious.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Lucy Person, Country Director, British Council Nigeria, and Brenda Fashuba, Head of Arts, British Council Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Think Zenith. In today's fast-moving, fast-changing world, you need a financial partner that understands your unique expectations. A bank with presence in major financial centers across the world, with the enabling platform to facilitate seamlessly, whenever, wherever, however. A bank with best-in-class financial solutions from a superb combination of technology and human touch. For easy, fast, and secure banking that creates real value. Turning dreams into reality is now in your hands. People, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Kai, my people, reason this thing now. When PDP day, our country be safe. Naira strong, economy they grow. Fuel, 7 Naira, rice, 8,000. Our life in better. Oh. When change people come, no work, no food, economy for gutter. Naija boro, banditry full town. Japa left and right, Sapa up and down. No need to gamble. Same choice. PDP don't come. Same choice. Recover Naija. Same choice. We don't tire to suffer. Same choice. Experience mind too. Same choice. We don't want experiment. Same choice. Get them right. Same choice. This time our life. Oh. Same choice. Recover Nigeria. Same choice. Atiku na the man. Oh. Same choice. Atiku Anokowa. Same choice. Na the only choice. Oh. Same choice.
What an amazing decade it's been. I think for me, what makes it even so exciting is that it's been built on the blocks of telling not just African stories, but authentic African stories that resonate with you as an African at home. I think having been at the forefront of telling some of those big stories from the south side of the continent for me has not only been enriching for me as a journalist, but it's also been a moment where you're able to take the story to the people. I think for me, the Oscar Pistorius laborious trial, bringing it blow by blow to our viewers on the platform, has been one of those big moments for me as a journalist here on Arise. And we say, here's to many more 10 years. Happy birthday.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The British Council Creative Economy Showcase program, which aims to stimulate links among Nigerian creatives by providing them access to the British Council exhibition spaces for displays, showcases and performances, has indicated its willingness to continue to support Nigeria's creative industry with the right investment and support. The program aims at building a strong British Council Nigeria Arts alumni network by increasing the creation of new art and sharing of this art with audiences, thus fostering new relationships between exhibitors and the wider creative sector in Nigeria. Joining us now is Lucy Pearson, Country Director, British Council Nigeria, and Brenda Fashugba, Head of Art, British Council Nigeria. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Morning. Thank you.
Well, maybe Lucy, we'll start with you. Just tell us more about the British Council's Creative Economy Showcase Programme.
So the British Council's Economy Showcase Programme is part of our broader work. We've been here for 79 years in Nigeria as the UK's cultural relations organisation, working through the arts and culture, education and English. And you said before about our ongoing commitment to the arts. It's not just a commitment, it's a passion that we have to support the creative entrepreneurs, artists, young people between 18 and 35 to develop their skills, their connections and networks through the arts, through our Creative Enterprise programme and also through our Connecting programme.
Right, well, thank you very much. So you've shown us, or just given us an overview of what it's about, but can you tell us, in terms of working with Nigerian creatives, how it has done this?
So building on our networks, both in the UK, Nigeria and across sub-Saharan Africa, we bring together artists and creatives to develop their skills, develop their capacity, connect so that they can learn from each other. We provide grants as well to help start up with their businesses. So artists have got huge talent, huge capability and some fantastic ideas, but sometimes they need some support in terms of turning that more into a business. So we help them with start-up grants to do that. We help them with infrastructure, access to our premises, access to mentors to develop their skills and capacity, and also through other work in terms of online teaching programs, so that they can develop and then they themselves can start a business and increase employability in the arts and the creative sector.
Right. I'd like to come to you, Brenda. When was this launched and, what does this seek to achieve?
This was launched September last year, and we looked at post-COVID recovery. And if we remember very well and look at our research, the creative sector suffered quite a bit. They had to be shuttered. Everybody had to stay in place. And it was quite challenging, especially for the younger creative entrepreneurs. So our hope is that this project helps to stimulate growth, for them, practice as well, because they're trying to put their events together, put their exhibitions together. And because we've given them access to our venues, kind of help them manage costs. So there's a lot to be gained from this program.
Well, Lucy, let me come back to you. I mean, when I had 79 years, I said, wow, 79 years. But could you please explain the British Council's role in Nigeria's creative sector?
Okay. So in the creative sector, and we're very much focused on the creative sector, particularly in terms of film, fashion. We've done some work this year with animation and also in music. And we're looking, as Brenda mentioned, to open our premises as venues because from our research, we understand that artists and creative have challenges in terms of accessing venue space, the high cost of that in many of the cities across Nigeria. So to provide that infrastructure, as well as some technical support, the equipment, marketing and communications to help them develop their business, their brand, with the British Council's brand behind it as well, and all the connections and networks that we have between artists and creatives in the UK, Nigeria and across sub-Saharan Africa. We're looking to work with artists and creatives, as I said, between 18 and 35, particularly our focus group, because we feel it's important to focus on the youth and capacity building and to give them life-changing skills and opportunities to help develop their own businesses and the wider creative sector in Nigeria and beyond. Putting Nigeria on the world stage, it's already there. We know about the music scene in Nigeria, but there's so much more that we can do to support that.
Brilliant. All right, so I'll come back to you, Brenda. Could you please tell us how artists and creative practitioners were affected by the COVID pandemic and how an initiative like the Creative Economic Showcase program is helping to resolve this?
It was not good, quite honestly, during the pandemic for artists. A few artists with influence could do some work virtually, but a lot of artists, especially a lot of artists in the value chain, people who are not working in front of the cameras, people who are not working on stage, who work behind, like the set designers and all of them, they had a hard time working, they had a hard time earning. And our hope is that as they come back to practice, through this initiative, they start to look at the economic value and commercialization of their craft. And because we're so dedicated to this age group, some of them are still quite inexperienced. And a lot of this work will help them build their experience, have some track to get trusted, and our hope is that the wider public starts to engage more with artists, especially the ones that are, up and coming.
So I'm sure a lot of people watching this now are like, yes, this is really good stuff, but getting involved, being part of it is something they want to do. I mean, how can they get involved? How can artists, other creative entrepreneurs and practitioners get involved? People in the ecosystem in general.
Yeah. So we've got a number of programs. I mean, we have a Creative Hustle, for example, which brings people together with mentors and creates spaces for them to exchange ideas, to learn and develop their skills. So I think follow as British Council on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook. There's more information out there. We're going to open up our spaces again across Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt and Kano for our Creative Enterprise Showcase programme. We have online training. We've launched a new e-learning training programme for artists and creatives where they will learn skills in terms of the business of the arts, to be able to, as Brenda said, monetize that work and their work, take it out to wider audiences, and ultimately gain certification, which we hope will then give them the leverage to secure further grants, further training and further experience to take their art further. We are offering grants, we're offering training through our programmes, and we can remain committed in future years to continuing our work to build the capacity of the creative sector in Nigeria.
Well, if I could ask a follow-up question, when is the next showcase?
When is the next showcase?
And what should we expect?
This is very good. So the next showcase, I might have to defer to my friend Brenda in a moment.
Okay, Brenda.
So we did have one on Saturday in Lagos, which was fantastic. I was there. We had artists, we had virtual reality, we had 4 film performances. One of the filmmakers went through a Creative Enterprise programme a few years ago, so it was wonderful to see how she's taken it to the next level. But to answer your question, our next event is in Port Harcourt, and I'm sure Brenda can share a few more details.
Yeah, we have one in Port Harcourt, but closer, we have one in Lagos, the Creative Hustle on Saturday at our offices on Thompson. So if you're interested in participating, you can just follow our social media handles, NG British Arts, and you can register. It's free. Just to also be very clear, the opportunities that we provide are free of charge. We don't charge the artists for the space. We support them with the equipment. We ensure that they get a lot of exposure on our own platforms, and we work closely with them to curate the events, for the wider public. So we're starting with an event on Saturday, Creative Hustle, and it's focused on women in the creative business in Nigeria.
Brilliant. I'm smiling because you mentioned women, and that's a great way as a lead up to the International Women's Day coming up in March. But you mentioned something about exposure, Brenda, and for an artist, this is a really big deal. Oftentimes for artists, what they're looking forward to is, the platforms to showcase their work. So please share with artists who are watching as to the benefits of being a part of this program.
Well, the first thing is practice, and the only thing you can be as an artist is better at your practice, So this gives you an opportunity to actually experiment, to test out new ideas, new work. Like Lucy said earlier, new art. We're looking for opportunities for new expressions. So that's the first thing you gain, that opportunity. The second thing you gain is almost a ready-made audience, which are people consisting of people who have worked with us in the past, participants from previous programs, and of course the wider public. And that's the second one. And, with practice and audience, the only next thing to do is to grow commerce, So you want to grow your commerce, you want to have people pay for the work that you put together. So there's a lot of benefits. Networking, with artists and with other artists in the value chain, other producers in the value chain of your business. So there's so much to gain by being a part of it.
All right, I'd like to talk to you about growing the commerce, because, the art is good, people enjoy the art for what it is, but it is the commerce that keeps the ecosystem running. So apart from, having mentorship in place, is there like a scheme to be able to hold them by the hands, to be able to show them how to grow the commerce, link them up with other, top museums around the world or art galleries and the likes, give them exposure, film festival and things like that, both the established artists and the artists that are just coming up? Yes?
Just me, sorry, yeah. So in terms of, I mentioned grants, so last year we worked with over 15 UK-Nigeria collaborations to give grants of between £5,000 and £30,000 to get things started. And we've found through our programmes that as artists connect, they generate new ideas. Through those connections, more connections come. So I mentioned through our Creative Enterprise programme, a couple of years ago we focused on film and fashion. That was two different strands, but actually those strands came together. You need fashion for film and film for fashion. So new innovation came from that. But through our partnerships work, we also hope to connect with artists and creatives, particularly in the UK. So we're doing quite a lot of work with Brighton Fringe Festival, for example, and we will be sponsoring a number of artists to take part in the Brighton Fringe later this year.
Oh, that's good. Very good stuff.
We've talked about artists, how to get involved. We've talked about some of the benefits. But as managers of the Showcase program, what are your expectations? Brenda, what are the basic expectations from those who participate in the program?
Growth. That's my expectation. And sometimes it takes a little while to see the growth. But what you want to see is an artist come in, put his craft together, put his work together. Let me even give you an example. Last week, over the weekend, one of the artists sold his work while, exhibiting. And that is something that we were so excited about. We're hoping to actually leverage, that experience and show other artists that if you participate, there's something for you. It was fantastic. He received the check. It was just wonderful to see that this little effort of ours, is already generating fruit. So our hope is growth. Growth in the commerce, growth in the skill, growth in practice. And our hope is it will help to support the ecosystem better.
All right, thank you, Lucy. I'd like you to also share from that perspective. I'm really excited to hear about success stories. So very quickly, in terms of perhaps one of the products that you're proudest of from this program.
The product, the most thing that I'm proudest of in Nigeria, I've been here 8 years and it's an absolute privilege. The thing that I'm most proud of is Lagos Theatre Festival, which we started in 2013. As a small festival in Lagos. We took it to the world stage. In 2018, it was recognised as one of the most prominent theatre festivals in the world. Fringe events have come as a result of that. Artists, producers, directors, performers have been taken to the world stage and connected with others around the world to take their art further and beyond Nigeria. That's the product that I'm most proud of. We've done that with fantastic people, and to see them grow, as Brenda says, to see them turn their art and their love into a business. And we can continue that. We've got the experience through Lagos Theatre Festival, and we can continue that through our arts work in film, in fashion, in animation, and in other art forms.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much, Lucy. Thank you very much, Brenda, for joining us on The Morning Show. We'll take a short break now. And when we return, we'll be talking to Daniel Bwala, spokesperson, People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash-strapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
There is a huge difference between the relative experience of salary earners and those of business owners and entrepreneurs. Someone who has never had cause to set up a business of his, who has never had cause to source for funds, turn it around, pay salaries, pay back the loan, and still make profit cannot be expected to be hands-on when saddled with an economy the size of Lagos. Experience that hasn't curbed Lagos's traffic in 24 years of their reign. Experience that hasn't addressed Lagos's perennial flood. Experience that currently leaves us with over 2 million out-of-school children. The duo of Jandor and Funke have been investing in Lagos's economy for about 2 decades, running their personal businesses, employing people with track records of success. Lagos needs a breath of fresh air. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as Governor of Lagos State. PDP! Power to the people!
Hi, I'm Pato Rankin, and they don't call me World Best for no reason. I only deal with the best. Be it auto or business, 100% claim is always guaranteed.
Welcome to World Class Insurance Services. We are Anchor Insurance.
Where insurance truly works.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. As the 2023 election in Nigeria draws closer, the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, is yet to resolve some internal crisis within its fold. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja yesterday extended the interim order it made on February the 2nd, which restrained the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and its leadership from taking steps to either suspend or expel the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, from the party. At the resumption of the suit, the judge ordered parties in the suit not to take steps that would render the court's judgment worthless. Also, Governor Wike stated that the G5, also known as the Integrity Group within the People's Democratic Party, PDP, is not running out of steam, adding that the group will act out its plan in the February 25, 2023 presidential election. Meanwhile, PDP's Presidential Campaign Council for Atiku Abubakar has announced that the party has shelved its campaign rally in Rivers State to avoid bloodshed. The leading opposition party added that the governor, Nyesom Wike, has been undiplomatic through his actions and utterances. Joining us now from our Abuja studio to discuss PDP crisis ahead of the 2023 election is Daniel Buhari, spokesperson, People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council. Good morning, Daniel Buhari. Good to have you on the program. I see that
morning, Dr. Abati.
You are specially attired today, perhaps to make a statement. The statement you are trying to make, you explain to us. Previously on this program, you brought a number of additions to the grammar of politics in Nigeria. Pantophobia, androphobia. I hope there is no phobia today. And you address the issue. I will start by helping us address the issue involving one, Senator Chimaroke Nnamani, who has also gone to court, saying that he was not given fair hearing, and that the party cannot expel him from the party because he decided to campaign for the presidential candidate of the opposition, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he doesn't believe in the idea of Northern presidency after 8 years. And then Governor Nyesom Wike says the court should extend the interim order, and that has been extended till, I think, March 6. And then, of course, both parties to the suit, counsel on both sides, agreed to that postponement. But it does look like both Nnamani and others, and also Governor Wike and others, are challenging the party. What options are available to the party beyond, in the face of this litigation? Yes.
Right. Thank you for having me. I know that the idea of the party is supreme was actually handed to the party by the court, because from 1999, all that political parties do was to apply the provisions of their constitution and they act accordingly. Then parties that are aggrieved will go to the court to seek interpretation of the constitution of the party and probably the conduct of the party against them. And over time, the court decided a straightforward law that the party is supreme. In fact, in the build-up to 2019 election, I remembered one of APC's case from Bayelsa, where it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made it clear that the political party is like a club, that they run the club according to their rules. And if somebody is aggrieved with that party, the only option available to the person is to go and change club. Surprisingly, there are members of the party who still think that they can change what we call the case law regarding the supremacy of the party. The intriguing part of it all is actually not even going to the court, but it's about the antics of those individuals before going to the court. If you recall, Wike has said that he dared the party to suspend him. He dared the party to do this. He dared the party to do. So all along you thought that he had a disposition where if the party suspended him, then he would be able to bring out what he thought he could do. But unknown to everybody, he ran like a dog with a tail between his legs to the court and is seeking the protection of the court. But what are the issues, like you rightly pointed out, Dr. Abati? These individuals are doing anti-party. The premise on which they are doing anti-party, they would like the world to know that it is on the basis of equity, fairness, and good conscience. They even name themselves as Integrity Group, but there is nothing integrity about the group, because all we know about integrity is forthrightness, it is candor, it is decorum, it is sincerity, and integrity encompasses the personality of the person as against the office they occupy. In other words, if you say somebody is a man of integrity, it means the person is living an exemplary life. What is it about him, about the group that is exemplary? I give you case-by-case things that they said. Initially, he led people to believe that he believes in equity and that he was going to support Peter Obi, because he knows traditionally the people in his place, if they are not going to vote PDP and Atiku, the next alternative they have is Peter Obi. He took these months and misled them, and now changed his mind. He wants to support Tinubu. He didn't know how to go about it. He told the world, what is it about integrity? You tell the world, by January, I will announce my candidate. I will go around the country. I will campaign for him. January came and passed. You have not announced. You have not moved an inch. And you turned the sacredness of the office of the governor in Nigeria into a circus and an event of melodramatic expression of emotional exegesis that is not garnished or furnished by integrity and candor. If you look at Nigeria from 1999 till today, a good example is even the APC. You know, there are some renegades in APC that have taken the president to court, but look at their conduct. Are they behaving like the person who made it out to the world to see him as a man of integrity? You turn that office of a governor. Look at the manner he runs the state. You said integrity is that there should be equity in the distribution of power sharing. All you need is to travel to Rivers State and look at all the critical offices of government and administration and education and healthcare. There are people from his own constituency. So in other words, his definition of integrity is as he wishes. And society cannot be built by big men turning the rules or making the rules according to their dictate. And the worst of it all, to be honest, is that apart from the decorum that is expected of that office, when you are a legal practitioner, whether in politics or in any aspect of governance, there is a higher calling and higher demand of the etiquette that is demanded of you. He is a bencher, but all of his activities does not reflect that.
All right. So, Dr. Bawala, you mentioned yesterday, February 14, was meant to be the PDP presidential rally in Port Harcourt, until the Presidential Campaign Council announced that they were stopping the campaigns. Now, this is a state that is governed by one of the integrity group members. In fact, the man you've just spoken about, Governor Nyesom Wike. I'd like you to just share with us, what's the status on ground? Does it mean that the PDP has not been allowed to campaign in Port Harcourt? Or perhaps does it mean that the PDP campaign would not go to Rivers State, Port Harcourt being the capital?
For the record, Atiku will go to Rivers before the election. But the reason Atiku Abubakar and the campaign took a decision that we were not going to be in Rivers yesterday was because Atiku believes democracy is about the people, about their lives, about their well-being. You cannot pretend to be working for the people and your ascendancy to sit will be determined by bloodshed, like the way Wike is doing. You have seen the other day, the campaign director general of our campaign in Rivers State, he escaped assassination. You saw the video, and in fact, the media reported where they spread, bullets. That's their idea of politics. He has threatened virtually everybody in Rivers State. He has taken all political parties to court in Rivers State. If you see the way he's intimidating SDP that is chaired by Magnus Abe in terms of governorship, or APC that is being run by Tonye Cole, and now his own party, PDP, he's attacking the party. His belief system is that democracy is when look at his commissioners. Every day we hear news of how they are crying like people who are held up in servitude. So Atiku decided, with all the threats of dynamite, of bombing, of gunshot, he now said, look, we cannot afford to go. We can go to conduct the election, but what about going there and then you see a loss of lives, killings, and then a bullet exchange and firearms and all of that? You say, it is not worth what we are pursuing. The most important thing for us is that the people of Rivers State, they understood his antics. Some of them can't wait for him to leave in a couple of weeks because they know the way he's reacting is like a dying declaration. It's somebody who is fizzling out of relevance. And so you don't follow him in the same way. And at the federal level, I think it's about time the federal government think about declaring state of emergency in that state, because if there can't be conduct of election in a given state because of the antics of a governor, and that democracy must be entrenched in that place, There must be free and fair. And for you to do the free and fair, if the chief executive officer said it cannot be, then the proper thing to do is to declare state of emergency, remove him, and conduct election there. And this won't be new in Nigeria. So Atiku decided we are not going to go because of bloodshed, but I give you the guarantee, before these elections are over, Atiku Abubakar will be in Rivers to celebrate with the people of Rivers State. And I want to tell you on set today, PDP is going to win presidential election in Rivers because the people that matter and deliver the votes are with Atiku. When you call the likes of Abiy Sekibo, Secondus, Limaiba, Farad Agogo, this app and many others in Rivers State, these were people that were delivering votes for him. In the 2 terms that he ran, these were the ground soldiers. They know the people at the base. All this is give out here and there. Here, look at, for example, all of his commissioning. When he's talking, there are just 3 people. Himself and the praise singer on the microphone, and probably 1 or 2 persons that need to encourage him. Look at the faces of people he flanks when he's talking. You see disillusionment. Even the candidate he is moving that he's campaigning for, look at the disposition of that fellow. Sometimes when he says the things he says, the man looks somehow. Because this is not the democracy we know. Okay. Election is not war. In the next few weeks, if I have to borrow the word of Lamido, he will be disappearing to the dustbin of former governors. He will lose relevance. We have seen the movie before.
Okay, but in all of this, Mr. Boala, a lot of people are going to look and say, you've said all the things you've said about Mr. Wike, his emotions, who he is, you know, he's not a man of integrity. You've said all the things about him. But people would like to ask, didn't your party, the PDP, know all of this when Mr. Wike was funding the party? Didn't the PDP know all of this when, as a couple of weeks ago, you were still saying that we are talking to him, you know, reason will prevail and all of that? Didn't you know all of this when you were still saying, oh, he's a man, he will come around, you know? Why is it now that you are saying all of this? But this man was funding the party at a point.
Right.
All of you know that he had this character flaws. You didn't say anything. This man still kept on.
If I have to borrow...
No, okay. Let me finish now, Mr. Boala. I like this, your red cap today. Let me finish, please. So all of you know that he was going through all of this. You know, it is not today people have made allegations of how he's reigned so supreme in the states. Nobody called him out because he was working in the favor of your party. But why now are you people, why didn't you call him out long ago?
Have you finished so I can answer?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let me borrow your locus classical terms when you talk about empirical evidence. You always celebrate that. You say I'm a man of empirical evidence. Unless you show me, I won't believe. What empirical evidence do you have that Wike funds the party? But I will leave that answer to you. Probably
I can answer
you will
it
deal with that later when you're doing analysis. But go ahead and answer.
You know, the people in the political party had confirmed it. In fact, it was so copious that before you joined the party, the party primaries was held in the states and largely supported organizing and logistics for the party primaries leading up to the 2019 elections. There are facts on ground, and other members of a political party had confirmed it, that he played a monumental role in the party. And that's what they say, people in your party.
So if I come back to you still on your own case, that is not enough empirical evidence. I think you've always anchored on that somebody said and somebody confirmed is not. Empirical evidence are based on statistics. They are based on factual issues that cannot be denied, not hearsay. But let me proceed further with some of the things you talked about. Wike, why is it that the party has not engaged him? You see, man is a free moral agent. And the entire concept of democracy is about negotiation and engagement. Democracy is not one man sitting and drawing out a rule and then ordering, like the way he would want the world to look at the democracy from his own version. Democracy is about participation. It's about negotiation. So all of these times that Wike has been, for example, after the primaries, nobody thought that Wike was going to come this way. He started by saying over his dead body, will he accept to be a vice presidential candidate? Meanwhile, he was lobbying for it. When the decision was made and he was not there, he then started the fight. Nobody could presume, nobody had the celestial power to see from his mindset that this was going to be, and especially because From 1999 till today, he's not going to be the first person who lost presidential primary. For God's sake, even in Rivers, where he comes from, you have the likes of Peter Odili. If you go to Cross River, you have the likes of Donald Duke. I remember in 2006, 2007, leading to that primaries, when Obasanjo, took and made a decision of who he wanted to represent. There were individuals that made a case. There were individuals that everybody knew. Decision was taken and everybody moved on. Even if you go to APC, in their last primaries, you saw a lot of people who made out good case. And they did, even in Rivers, where he comes from, Amechi participated in the primaries. He didn't win. The walls did not fall. There was no Armageddon. There was no World War. He is the first, I make the case, he is the first since 1999 till today, who believes that if he does not win, the world will collapse. Entire party that made him everything he is. What has he done or what was he worth before he entered politics and benefited everything he has benefited by being a member of People's Democratic Party? He owes the party much more than he thinks he has done for the party. And secondly, he was funding his interest, not funding the party. Because for example, after he lost the primaries and now saw that he does not have a stake, has he been funding, even if I have to take it on your own case submission, he has not. So he was funding it in every part of Nigeria. He has collapsed structure. He has undermined states' wishes. He has turned the entire, because he was trying to take control of the structure. How was Secondus removed? Was it under a democratic means? And all these things, nobody will know. It's like you and I talking. I can't see your mind. You can't see my mind. But we both must have an understanding that we believe there is hope in our negotiation and something positive will come out. Why am I talking now? Because our presidential election campaign in the state was finally thwarted, even after the entire party was towing to please this man, who I believe is inconsequential to the victory of Atiku in the coming election. Buhari did not win Rivers State. He won election. But we are going to get 75% of the vote in Rivers. Because if you go down to the grassroots, they want this Pharaoh to leave that place so they can rest. He doesn't have people that are, you see, the power of a lame dog. Anybody in government, when you enter your second term and you're going, you are less popular than the first time. He has money to bring media attention to what he does. But sit down with the people. Even I believe strongly, Rufai, on the day of election, there will be members of his family that will vote for Atiku. How can Rivers State not vote PDP? That is the party they can claim ownership. That is the party that brought blessing to them from 1999 till today. I don't think there is any part of the country in terms of geopolitical zone that has benefited more from People's Democratic Party than the South-South. Are they going to leave that to go for a party that is unknown, for a party without prediction, for a party without a future? Are they going to throw away the party they have because of a one man that is fizzling and disappearing to the oblivion? Certainly no, because the people of Rivers are intelligent, they know what they want, and they know when to decide on what they want. And I am telling you, Rufai, you can bring me back after election, Rivers State will be won by People's Democratic Party and Atiku Okowa on presidential election. And I am also saying that Wike is in. Okay, he said I'm recruiting 200,000 people. Has he recruited? What is the salary? What is the civil service base in Rivers? How much has he given the people? Go and look at infrastructure. Go and look at schools. So Wike is a great man in the sense of the respect you give to every other person. Wike may have done well for the party in the past, but he has destroyed his legacy. That is, I think that's the summary of it all.
Okay, Boala. Waziri Atiku Abubakar was in Enugu State yesterday. He went to Government House. He was received by Governor Ugwanye, but the governor did not show up at the rally. There were also many members of the PDP in that state that didn't come for the rally. And this would seem to confirm the position of the governor of Rivers State, that look, the G5 is not dead, that they are strategizing privately, and that when it comes to election time, the PDP will see the effect of their strategy. Does that bother you? Because you've just been dismissing him, He probably knows something that you don't know. And then secondly, I asked you earlier on, this your Ishiagu, complete with beads and red cap and all that. Is this, a dress rehearsal for you know, if an upcoming chieftaincy title award for you in Igbo land, or you just thought you should dress in a Nigerian sense? Anyway.
Actually, it's in lieu of a title that I will receive in Anambra sometime this year after election. And I'm honored to be given the honor by the good people of Anambra and by extension the Igbo land. If assuming you're an Igbo man, well, we'll start speaking Igbo and you'll be surprised how much of Igbo I know. And
don't make it sound like the Yoruba you spoke on this program the other time.
I'm Daniel Boala. even the Yoruba that I spoke that day was okay. It's a matter of accent. So if you go to Oyo, you see the accent of Oyo might be different from the accent of Ogun, but my accent, I think, is the accent from Bodejo's community. Now, but let me say something about the G5. Look at Governor Ugwanyi, for example. Highly respected and honorable man. He received the party, he received the candidate. His governorship candidate was at our rally. He spoke at the rally. His hand was lifted. He lifted the flag of the party. Governor Ugwanyi has demonstrated how you can show protest with dignity, honor, decorum, and integrity. Governor Ugwanyi was the first to host the Southeast Stakeholders Forum when we went. Let me tell you, as I was coming down the plane, this man was so honorable. He was so celebrating me. If he was angry with the party, I mean, you could see that from his face. The kind of reception he gave the party, that is how honorable men protest. And let me tell you, Dr. Abati, Enugu will overwhelmingly vote PDP presidential. Who knows? Maybe Governor Ugwanyi is just showing a little bit of solidarity to Michael Jackson, but in actual fact, he supports the candidate of the party. Now, look at the rest of the G5. When was the last time you saw them ranting? Look at the G5 governor in Abia. Was he not the one that came cap in hand requesting for the approval of the party for primaries in his state? The party is supreme. Amongst the Jackson 5, it was only Michael Jackson, Wako Jacko. It is the only, okay, if you say you are working privately, so why are you talking? Why don't you just keep quiet and do the private? But he's still the only one talking. In all of his commissioning, he does not talk about policy of the next person he wants to take over the state. He does not talk about certain, he only, when he comes on the mic, the next person is Atiku. When he finished roasting Atiku, he looks at candidate in his state. Look at the vitriol that came out of his mouth yesterday against Abiy Sekibo, the director general of the campaign there. Now, I am telling you, he will regret by himself when he comes out. He say, oh, I would have done that differently. This, you see, what the power of governors is that once a governor leaves the seat of power, 1 week later, he will see whether he's popular or not. We have seen the movie. There was a governor in Nigeria that was more vociferous than him. 1 week after election, the governor disappeared to the oblivion. Such is life. When you have power, you must exercise the power with dignity and candor and honor. So when you hear him say integrity, it's not integrity. Listen to his accent and pronunciation. He calls it integrity. Integrity is interest-based. Integrity is agenda. You see, and he has destroyed his political future. Let me be very honest. This is a man who is seeking to run for presidency sometime. He has cancelled his image in the entire region of the country and is cancelling in other parts of the country. He is the reason we have Labour Party today, because he frustrated the man in the party. So all I'm saying in a nutshell, Dr. Abati, is that if you look at the G5 or the Jackson 5, he is the only one whose expression denotes or connotes frustration. The rest are settled. The governor of Benue has promised to support us for the presidential election. Even Bode George, look at his statement. I read it somewhere. He said Atiku is the better candidate among all the presidential candidates, and that he's even faulting the G5. I mean, when we are closing down here, there is only one candidate that stands out, Atiku Abubakar. And the third-term agenda of Obasanjo cannot stop it. The Emilokun cannot stop it. This is the true unifier who has demonstrated dignity, honor, and integrity in the conduct of the campaign.
Okay, Dr. Bala, you said that, two questions for you. The first thing, you said that it was Wike that frustrated Mr. Peter Obi out of the PDP, hence the reason why we have him running on the Labour Party's, as a flag bearer of the Labour Party for the presidential elections. I'd like you to expound on that, please. How did Governor Wike frustrate Mr. Peter Obi in the party? And has he frustrated other members like that? I'd like you to just explain to Nigerians a bit further. Then second, just as a right of reply, where you say that it was due to violence that you cancelled or in your words, postponed the rally in Port Harcourt, Governor Wike said it's actually because the PDP is very unpopular in Port Harcourt, citing the fact that the PDP doesn't care about the state. He said that during the floods, PDP and the leadership and the presidential candidate visited other places like Bayelsa and Delta. They didn't even bother to come to River State. So in River State, they have not done River State well, and they've neglected River State. I'd like you to, that's his response. He says it's a lie, that it wasn't because of violence. Kwakwanso came, he gave him vehicles. Peter Obi came, gave him vehicles. Asiwaju has applied and is going to support. So what is different about the PDP? That it's actually the fact that you know that you cannot mobilize people in River State. That's why you refused, or you have not come yet to River State. So those two questions, please.
So actually it's a facade. His statement though is not supported by evidence. But let me go to the first and second, then come back to the second speedily. Why? What is the premise of my submission that Peter Obi left the party? Before now, the party, while they were planning for the primaries, there was this internal, I wouldn't use the word agitation, but internal advocacy for the power to shift to the south, and people felt it should shift to the southeast. That started growing, the conversation. It started reverberating to the point where Atiku said to the party that if the party was inclined to zoning, he is of the view it should be zoned to the southeast or northeast, because these are the two geopolitical zones that have not benefited. And that if it was zoned to the southeast, he was not going to contest. Meanwhile, Governor Wike, who has interest in running for the president, started by ensuring he removed secondaries before that time. And then during this time of the advocacy and conversation, Governor Wike ensured that the committees that were formed to deliberate on the structure of the party leadership as well as the structure of the presidential, he ensured that these people came out with a finding that would support his ambition. So they came up at the party structure level that the chairmanship, whether should go to the north or thereabout, because he was thinking that if the chairman comes to the north, it is natural that the candidate will come to the south. When it came to the presidential election, he ensured that the outcome left the thing open because of the growing conversation that it should be zoned to the southeast when the decision is agreed that it will go to the south. So, and when Governor Peter Obi saw that it was thrown to the open, he knew he couldn't challenge gladiators in the party, and so he left. But if you even go deeper at Anambra state level, you could see that ordinarily Peter ought to have been the leader of the party in Anambra. All you need is to just Google and you will see how Peter Obi was frustrated by the command and control of Governor Wike. So that is the premise for saying that he frustrated the man out of the party. Come to the second one. All that he's saying is antics. All the places where candidate visited, they were received by the governor. Is Enugu governor not a G5 governor, but he received our candidate? We paid him a courtesy visit. We had a clean and peaceful rally there without any acrimony. In his own state, you couldn't come to the state. Even his own fellow indigents, Lee Meba, Secondus, Abia, all these people, he was chasing them out of the state through threat and violence. And here we are talking about a DG of the campaign in his state. First of all, when he denied us the use of the venue, we decided to use a venue that has a proprietary ownership by a candidate of the party. Guess what? His centers or people who were sympathetic to him went and were destroying the structure. When Abia Sekibo went to see what was happening, they spread bullet on him. That is a toxic environment. There is no part of this country, even if you go to APC state, we have gone to Lagos with campaign. They didn't terrorize us. We went to Borno. They limited it to people attacking the convoy. But a member of your party whose entire life, I doubt if Governor Wike, in his practice of law, he has amassed up to 5 million naira before he joined politics. Everything he has, he owes it to the party. And there were people in the state that were far better than him. He benefited from the grace of God and the grace of the party. And today, he's saying he's the Alpha and Omega. We have resisted military interregnum and junta. He is a civilian. If I have to use the term of the military, I would say he's a bloody civilian. He's incapacitated. Atiku can go to that state and conduct rally, and it will be fire for fire. But is that what we are out for? How can we say we want to unite and recover Nigeria, and then we'll go to a community that is toxic, that it will lead to the death of lives? If it is popularity, let us wait for the election and let the outcome speak. And let me tell you, for the bragging governors who say, oh, in 20 so and so, I delivered this number. These were days when you could manipulate the vote. We're talking about beavers. If PDP does not get a landslide victory, Labour will get a vote, but his own APC will not get presidential vote in Rivers. They are not stupid, though. So this is the summary of it all. He is driven by his ambition. But look at Adolf Hitler. All the people on earth whose ambition drove them to the extent that he is going, the end story is always a horrible one.
Okay, Daniel Bwala, you can't say for sure who is going to win the presidential election. I will have asked you more questions, but there is no time. We'll wait till that time, and Nigerian people will decide that. And thank you also for confirming my initial premise that he did support the party in your allusions you made. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Daniel Bwala, spokesperson for the PDP Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for your time this morning. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni join us to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us.
When you hear the sound of credit alert, quick and easy transfer, say we want to serve you better. No be play, we go turn your business around. Be our concern. At Fidelity Bank, Fidelity there for you. We are here for you. We are the bank for you. It's true, do it all for you. And we go stand by you. Put your trust in us.
Keep our word. 34 million hectares of arable land. Over 200 million people. One nation. Home to Africa's fertilizer company. Dangote fertilizer, pure urea fertilizer. With one single-minded passion to feed Nigeria. Every bag is a potential, an aspiration to turn this green nation into the biggest food basket of Africa. Dangote fertilizer.
Come with me, let's talk. Now, you see, confidence is a very attractive trait a man can possess. And it's the entire package, not just the outfits. And definitely not going around looking like this guy. And that used to be me, but not anymore. Oh well, insert music! For me, before I choose anything, I always look out for unconventional, authentic, and very important living with promise. Now, let me show you one of the things that carries all these qualities I look out for. What I'm about to show you is a mix of African roots and modern technology to deliver something ultra. This is uniquely created from honey, camwood, shea butter, aloe vera, and essential oils. Experience ultra moisturization with Premier Cool Black for a renewed skin feel. Oh, and what's a soap ad without a shower scene? Got the shower scene.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai.
Good
morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Yes, we'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. I will start above the masthead. That's the window story. 2023 elections. This day, editorial board intervention. Yes, editorial writing. Of course, week in, week out. Read the editorial of this day written by, of course, a number of persons who put their heads together to come up with the editorial position of this day. But this package from this day, a different kind of package where the editorial board members, of course, individuals are encouraged to take a stand. Of course, quoting Michael Gartner, the 1997 Pulitzer Prize winner for editorial writing, who said, it comes a time you have to take a position. So the editorial board members of this day, in a special package, have come up with their position on what the next president should deal with. Of course, there are no shortage of issues for the next president to deal with, from tertiary education, the crisis of tertiary education, to power supply, the general economy, amongst other things. So each of these members, they have put pen to paper in this special package. Gimba Kakanda, Sanyaude Okoli, of course, Chidi Amuta, one of journalism's finest, Waziri Adio, the immediate past executive secretary of NAITI, Kayode Komolafe, the ombudsman of this day group, and of course, Dr. Monde Philip Ekpe, amongst others, and of course, the chairman of the editorial board, Olusegun Adeni. They have all put their thoughts together. And if you go through this, their reports, their write-up, the special package from this day, a different kind of editorial. Ruben is a master of editorial. I haven't chaired the editorial board of the Guardian newspaper for many years. I know you have one or two things to say about that. Now, the lead story, presidency, federal government, CBN to take position on currency swap after Supreme Court determination today. Emefiele, politicians buying, storing new banknotes for elections. Berates fuel stations over alleged extortion of customers. Calls diplomatic community on Naira redesigned cashless policy. Maintains currency hoarders. Abusers will go to jail. Governors mopping up new no CSOs alleged. Now, the position of the central bank governor, or the utterance of the central bank governor yesterday, gives the indication that clearly, since that ex parte order was given, it was not actioned on by the CBN. And of course, the bank said so clearly that we did not receive any counter circular from the central bank other than the February 10 deadline. And from what the central bank governor has said, that happens to be the case. And of course, the Nation newspaper is reporting that legal giants knock Emefiele for disrespecting Supreme Court. And of course, they list these legal luminaries, Professor Iseshage, Ajibola, Aribisala, Femi Falana, Wahab Shito, amongst others. And Professor Sage is saying the other parties on the case should now file proceedings for contempt against Emefiele. Maybe that will reduce his zeal and the wickedness and cruelty. That's Professor Sage weighing in on how the CBN has reacted to the Supreme Court ruling.
Well, thank you, Emmanuel Efene. We've been told we've run out of time, but on that particular matter that you just mentioned, the Supreme Court, I understand, is filled to capacity, and the 7-man panel is already sitting with all the parties and counsel in court. So later today, we'll know what comes out of that.
We should expect some legal fireworks there.
Well, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be bringing you the second part of our Rise at 10 documentary. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let me tell you, no matter your poor background, PDP will give you the opportunity to be anything, to be whatever you want to become in your life.
Yawa, da so samu ne, Atiku ya samu, wazirin mu da shi da Okowa su ne namu. Umfa an samu, wai, da na samu, idan na samu kai ka samu kowa ya samu. Da so samu ne, ku dangwala wa Atikun dai, saboda ba wani shakka shugaban kasa shine daidai. Dala ta karye, a cire tsoro a gyara tsaro bana dole mu warke. Da so samu ne, a ce a rike tuta na tsawon minti 10 kuma ba wanda zai huta. Umfa an samu, umfa an samu, mene? Umfa an samu, wani habawa. To ku zaɓi Atiku, da shi da Okowa. Wala ma PDP ku fito mi zaɓe ku fito da BBC. Rayuwa for Naija is hard, ko baba ya san no easy. Ga tsada ga layin mai ga yunwa ga ba ko sisi. Rainy days ahead amma ga lema Atiku muke so sai lema da ni da kai da shi har da kema. Ran zaɓe da wala malema
Back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. It's been a special time for all of us at the Rise News. We're marking our first 10 years on the air. Today we have the second of our 2 programs to mark Arise at 10. It has a look at how Arise covered Nigerian politics, including 2 presidential elections, another one happening very soon. How far the SARS violence became a pivotal moment, not just for Nigeria, but for Arise as well. But we also look at how we covered COVID-19 and how our correspondents from the war zones, including Ukraine, and on the lighter side, a decade when African fashion came of age, peaking with the Arise Fashion Week here in Lagos this very week. Our own Leila Johnson-Salami take us through it.
When Arise News launched exactly 10 years ago, nobody would have predicted that the decade would end with what literally became a world war, because its effects were felt in every country, not least here in Nigeria. Few of us would have known that we'd have to live with a deadly pandemic that swept the globe. And right here in Africa's biggest economy, we'd be on the brink of a tense election, overshadowed by fears about security and democracy itself. It's our job to cover it all. We're looking back at how we did so far. I'm Leila Johnson-Salami in Lagos. In this show, we're focusing on the most recent 5 years of Arise's history. We're looking back at the exclusive coverage, interviews, and reports that have helped Arise make the news that matters for all of you. We'll get the inside story on our special coverage of the End SARS moment against police brutality with the Arise reporter who was herself harassed by heavy-handed police. The Arise News foreign correspondents who brought us live reports from Ukraine, Gaza, and Iraq will tell us what it's like reporting from some of the world's most dangerous places. And she's brought the biggest names in entertainment to Arise News. Kachi Ofia will be here to look back and look forward to the next decade in music, fashion, and entertainment. We'll start with an election that's about to happen. It's being run against a background of fear about terror, crime, corruption, and an economy facing inflation and uncertainty about growth. Like all the Nigerian elections that we've covered in 10 years, the democratic process is as important as the politics and the candidates. That's why, as a news channel, we favor nobody and try to bring all the politicians to account on behalf of the voters. That's how we are judged, now more than ever.
Now, Nigerians began voting for a new president today after a week-long delay that has raised political tempers, sparked conspiracy claims, and stoked fears of violence.
Late President Muhammad Buhari was one of the first in the queue when the nearly 120,000 polling stations began opening.
So I believe that Nigerians know what they're doing, and I'm sure that they're also silently praying that whatever process, whichever this process goes today, whoever emerges, from this process of presidential elections today, would be guided by the right spirit, to lead Nigeria in the right direction.
Leo Imoke, what is your take on zoning, especially as a leader of the PDP?
The signing of the bill has forced the Independent National Electoral Commission to adjust dates for the 2023 general elections.
8 weeks to presidential election, race too close to call.
Present all.
President Buhari arrived at the White House for the leaders' dinner. Earlier in the day, the Nigerian president and 5 other African leaders, whose countries are scheduled for elections in 2023, met with President Biden. Buhari says elections have steadily improved in his administration, while dismissing concerns that attacks on INEC offices would impede the elections.
4 of the frontline presidential candidates in the 2023 general elections in Nigeria have given a preview of their plans for the country if elected president. Speaking at the first leg of the Arise Presidential Town Hall series in Abuja on Sunday.
But before we get started this evening, an exceedingly important evening, let's run through the general house rules.
Dear candidates, you have 2 minutes each to answer this next question.
Let me join my brother in thanking all those who have taken the time to organize this town hall meeting.
I'm now joined by the former managing director of Arise News, Ijeoma Nwogugu, and also Rufai Oseni. Thank you both so much for being here today. MD, it's lovely to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, the upcoming elections is going to mark the 3rd elections that Arise is covering since the channel launched in 2013. MD, let me come to you first. How would you say Arise News has changed the front of political reporting over the years here in Nigeria?
Oh, tremendously, tremendously in the sense that, there's been so much more analytical rigor in terms of the analysis, the interrogation of the electoral process, the candidates. It's kept a lot of people, it brought a lot of eyeballs, not just to Arise, in the sense that it's increased their viewership, but it's also put even the the politicians and their surrogates on their feet. So you find a lot of them now when they're coming to the studio, they come better prepared because they know that the kind of analysis and interrogation is going to be a lot more in-depth. And so that's so because of that, a lot of time you see Arise trending both on social media because of either the exchange that is going on between the anchors and the political participants and what have you. We've pushed the envelope as far as political and election coverage is concerned in so many ways. Even with the town halls we're able to hold for the 2023 election. Whenever there are elections, we have 24-hour coverage. For the presidential primaries a couple of months ago, we even set up election desks right at the venue. So not only were we covering the primaries, we even had the participants, actors, come into a makeshift studio right at the venue for interviews throughout.
And I love what you said about how we now have politicians coming into the studio knowing that they have to come prepared. That's definitely something that we've seen progressing over the years. And we are now approaching one of the most significant elections in Nigeria's history. How do you see these elections playing out?
The elections are going to be interesting. First, like never before in a while. Normally, you always have 2 out-and-out candidates, but for the very first time, you've got 3 candidates. Some will say 4, but some will narrow it down to 3. A lot of people have likened this elections, the 79 elections, but I don't think they're like the 79 elections. I think every election is different. It's got its own peculiarity. All the sentiments are still there, still split down religious line, it's still split down tribal lines and the likes. You've got Peter Obi, that's a lot of people, in the East will be voting for, and young people to have a tilt towards, and people generally, they say it's got this obedient movement. You've got Bola Ahmed Tinubu that's got his own political stronghold in the Southwest, former governor of Lagos, former senator, has been in political terrain for quite a while. And you've got former vice president of the country, Atiku Abubakar, that has got his own political ilk out there in the north and other parts of the country. In fact, a lot of people say he's a more rounded national candidate because of his spread and the antecedents of the PDP. And you have all of this going on at a time where it's been an all-time low for Nigeria economy. The last 8 years have been a very tough time for every Nigerian. High inflation rate, high debt by the government, although they claim that they've done a lot of infrastructure, but people are arguing what's even the quality of infrastructure done. We've seen rail lines derail. We've seen lots and lots of things happening. The insecurity is unabating. The strength of the Naira pretty much collapsed over the years. When you look at all the indices, it has been a dire time for Nigeria, and these three candidates are coming in. We're paying heavily on subsidies and all of that. So it's an election like never before. And to the role of Arise in this election, I think Arise became a brand that shaped the narrative a lot and listened a lot to the young people when NSAS happened. After NSAS, a lot of people gravitated towards Arise because of the objectivity. We must tell the people the truth and we must balance the story. And there's something I learned from her in the newsroom. We are never too shy to come out boldly to say we made a mistake when we made a mistake. We're not saying we're perfect, but we're saying we'll strive for balance and we will cut across every point and give every side, point of view. And afterwards, since NSAS, we have constantly grown. We did the 2019 elections. Yes, we're doing the 2023 elections. We're being the most talked about TV station. In fact, we're number one. All right, all the indices, all the stats shows it. I mean, another thing that Rise have been able to do, and I think when the history of Nigerian media will be written, we'll give a lot of kudos to Arise. For the very first time, Arise have been able to bring a demography that is never part of political viewing to political viewing, and that's the young people, the youth. The bulk of young people now get interested in watching politics because of the way and the objectivity at which it's reported on Arise TV. And for me, it's something that has made Arise unique. Our newsroom is a place where we argue, and it is the best logic that wins. It's not dogma. It's not laid down for you. It's not, okay, this is this. Arise doesn't have a slant. We don't spin. There is no overriding agenda. The agenda is the best argument in the room.
The truth.
The truth. And that's the best argument based on balance. All of us, we've come together at this point in time, at a point in time. And if there's a fire burning in all of our stomach, if you talk to everybody that ever appears on Arise TV, they'll tell you that they're just fed up of the status quo of what media used to be in the past, and they wanted to make a change. So that's our own part in national development, about being a network that covers politics and across every sector. Our forte. We're big on business. We're big on the economy. Most of the top business leaders know that is their Rise News platform, they want to talk about. And we've been in the vanguard of this conversation, the economy, agriculture, and other policies like that. So for us, our country comes first. Our country is our pride and joy at the Rise News channel. But the conversation, the quality of debates, that's our strength. And that's why, if for anything, you would always see that people are glued to us because we have the best arguments across every area, every sector possible. And that's what we've been able to give to people. And it's 10 years. For the next 10, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, we want to be there.
I'm now being joined by Dr. Reuben Abati. Hello, Doctor. Lovely to have you here.
Lena. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Doctor. Now, we are going into the third presidential elections that Arise News is going to be covering since the channel's launch in 2013. Doctor, what changes have you seen on Nigeria's political stage since the launch of the channel?
So what I can say really is that what Arise News has been able to demonstrate is the agenda-setting power of television stations. Okay, beyond the framework, of course, many of the major gladiators, if you like, actors, state and non-state actors in the Nigerian electoral process have found Arise News a major station destination of preference for articulating their views, for presenting their case to the Nigerian people and the international community. Okay, we've been much criticized in this regard for the simple reason that Arise News does not hold back. Okay, we subject our guests to serious interrogation because the station, despite criticisms here and there, is non-aligned. Our job is to ask you the questions. Your duty is to answer the questions, not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of the Nigerian people and for the general audience who want to be given answers to specific questions. But I guess the political class in Nigeria is used to PR. And when they come onto this station, we tell them, no, we're not doing PR here. We are doing serious work. We're doing journalism. And we will ask you the questions. Your job is to answer. But some of them come and they even want to help you formulate the questions. They want to teach you how to do the job. And we say, no, you cannot teach us how we do this job. You are our guest. Once you sit in that chair, you should be ready to talk to the people. The Independent National Electoral Commission has made it very clear that you cannot vote if you don't have the PVC, which is what Nigerians call it. But collecting the PVC has been an ordeal, a nightmare. There are persons who go to wards, who go to local governments, who go to state headquarters, they can't get their PVCs. There have been insinuations of ethnic discrimination, religious discrimination. What that means is a constructive disenfranchisement of the average Nigerian voter. And we hope that the frustration, the angst, the discontent that this is beginning to indicate will not have a deleterious, harmful effect on the electoral process itself. Because people are beginning to carry placards. People are protesting. In fact, some people have said if they are not allowed to vote, they will commit suicide. Nobody should commit suicide because of an election. But the Nigerian state also has a responsibility to make sure that people get their voters' cards and that they are not excluded, that they are part of this process because they're citizens and it's part of their responsibility to exercise that civic responsibility.
Absolutely, Doctor. And the media's job to ensure that these elections, well, to do what we can in our own way to push for free and fair elections. After all, we are in a democratic country. And like you said, nothing needs to interfere with these elections at all.
Well, the media, the role of the media, that's very important. I know workshops have been organized about the role of the media. Our job is to set agenda. Yeah. Our job is to inform the people. Our job is to give voice to the voiceless. But you see the politicians, they try to drag the media into the matter. They will tell you, oh, they've been misquoted. Oh, that's not what I said. This is what they are always trying to second guess journalists. I think everybody should realize, and it is important, that journalists in this country, Nigeria, as is the case elsewhere, are performing a constitutional duty. Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria is very clear in this regard. It says that the job of the media is to hold government accountable to the people. Yeah. And that is where the concept of the fourth estate of the realm comes from. Section 39 of the same Constitution talks about the right to own a medium of expression. And the people, under the United Nations Charter on Freedom of Information, says that the people have the right to know. The right to know is a sacred principle tied to universal human rights. All we do is to protect, promote, defend the people's right to know. And the politicians need to be educated in that regard.
One of the biggest problems for the Nigerian economy in the last 10 years has been to get away from depending on imported refined oil products, essential for industry, transport, and heating. Why does the country with the 10th largest reserves of crude oil in the world not have enough oil refineries to supply its own needs? Step forward, Africa's richest man, leading Nigerian businessman Aliko Dangote, who has built the largest oil refinery of its kind in the world here in Lagos. It's due to be opened by President Buhari before he leaves office in the next few months. Arise was given exclusive access to the whole complex and spoke to Dangote about his plans and challenges.
Hundreds of feet beneath Nigeria's surface lies a natural resource that could transform the country's fortunes. Nigeria is sitting on 37 billion barrels of oil.
Everybody now is just thinking about oil, oil, oil. Whereas what we're supposed to have done with this oil was to use this oil and now expand the economy.
One man is dreaming of a Nigeria where oil is a blessing to businesses and to people. This would be a Nigeria that is self-sufficient in fuel. And he has got around $19 billion in financing backing him up. Next year, his new privately owned refinery is due to come online, producing 650,000 barrels a day. In theory, it could meet all of the country's fuel needs and have enough left over for exports. The scale of this place is incredibly imposing, to say the very least. Photos do it absolutely no justice. You just have to see it in person. It's more like a very big city instead of just a project. I am Abby Owolawi for Arise News, and I am investigating how Nigeria's oil riches became a curse and finding out if they can be transformed into a blessing.
And we are here now sitting on over 2.4 million barrels at a point, and we don't refine any of this oil.
It has been hailed as an opportunity to get Nigeria's oil industry back to where it needs to be. Modern, efficient, producing petrol, diesel, jet fuel, and liquid gas. For a country that has the world's 10th largest oil reserves, yet has to import most of its fuel because the refineries are broken.
The man who served 2 terms as president of Nigeria doesn't give many interviews. In fact, the first one Muhammadu Buhari gave during his second period in office was exclusive to Arise. And of course, there was plenty we wanted to ask him about.
Corruption is very difficult under this system. Even under the military system, luckily I have experienced both occasions. When I collected people, put them in Kiriki or somewhere and said they are guilty until they can prove themselves innocent, and put investigation panels based almost on the geopolitical zone for people that held positions, governors, ministers, commissioners, heads of parastatals, because then people don't get that position until they declare their assets. Then they are faced with the bank statements and their assets. If they cannot explain, the balance is taken away from them. Whoever we have correct intelligence that is not being very accountable, we ease him out.
In October 2020, thousands of young Nigerians took to the streets to protest against police brutality by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad known as SARS. Those End SARS protests were themselves repressed by soldiers and police at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, with at least 11 people killed and dozens more injured. Arise News brought the story to the world, and the following year, we got our own taste of heavy-handed policing when Arise reporter Adefemi Akinsanya was harassed by police at the End SARS 1-year anniversary.
They were shooting. First they came, they shot at all. They'll come down, they'll shoot.
Relatively peaceful protests turning violent, protesters being shot and reportedly killed by Nigerian troops.
Because I can see 3 of those armies in front, they're shooting. sporadically.
There's so many young Nigerians that are here today, and quite frankly, they're just tired.
Leadership is not by force. Leadership is not power.
Yesterday, the IGP came out to say that SARS has been disbanded. This is something we have heard on multiple occasions. Is that why you are back here again today?
People were faced with live bullets.
We were directly harassed by members of your force because we
Any harassment given to you, my apologies.
We will not fail the next generation. They have failed us, but we'll take this country back.
One lesson we learned from October 2020 is that truly anything is possible when it comes to protesting here in Lagos, right here at the toll gate. If we let history tell it, yes, the use of deadly force is a real possibility, and we don't want to take any chances. Both of our journalists on the ground here have been given bulletproof vests in case of any type of lethal discharge of a weapon.
I was hit here. I was punched. I was hit here.
The Arise News team was approached.
We want justice. We seek justice.
Yes. And joining me now is Adefemi Akinsanya. Femi, thanks for joining me.
Because we were so focused on covering the procession and covering the memorial protest itself, it hadn't really sunk in what had just happened with the police. It hadn't sunk in that we had been involved in a clash, that we had been assaulted, I had been assaulted. It hadn't sunk in that had happened, that armed police officers had approached us, had tried to take our equipment, had tried to arrest Okwe, the cameraman. It was a lot happening all at once, but when the protest happened, everyone just clicked back into work mode. And when we finished covering at the protest and headed back to the newsroom, even then, we were still very much in work mode. Okwe and I sat down and put together the report that we put together that day, and that went out. And then we came home, I came home, and I think it only finally settled in the gravity of the situation the morning after. And honestly, it wasn't even a feeling of adulation or of happiness or of strength. It was one of shock, despair, and definitely trauma. And I think that that's something that has lasted with all of us who were at the toll gate that day. The fact that things could have ended so badly. Thankfully, they didn't, but they could have. And the irony of us being assaulted by police while we were covering a memorial of anti-police brutality protest wasn't lost on any of us. So in hindsight, it's definitely something that I will always remember. And I'm grateful that I've been able to be a part of a moment that has shined, or rather that's shone a light on areas in Nigerian society that needs improvement.
Our former MD, Ijoma Nwogugu, reflects on how the Arise News team, under her guidance, ensured that the truth and only the truth was reported during and in the aftermath of the events of the EndSARS protests.
Everybody talks of the EndSARS. EndSARS was huge for us in so many ways or form. I remember that at some point in time, I don't know if I should be saying it, there was, as the protests progressed, I mean, later, you might know about this, there was pressure on us to stop going to the Lekki Tollgate Plaza to cover it, but we had to put our foot down and said, no, we need to cover, these people need to be heard. They're protesting against police brutality, and there's a big story here. And I think that's what endeared us to a lot of Nigerians and the rest of the world.
The day after the shooting at EndSARS, and the day after that, we had to come to work. And the risk we took, because we did take a lot of risk. And I remember how all of us in the crew, I think Tundu and I and one other person, and Dr. Abati, had to drive in convoys pretty much because the roads were blocked. And as at day two, not too much police presence on the road, hoodlums everywhere, making blockades, and we needed to come to work the following day. And it was very hard. It was a lot of risk. and we had to take those risks, and it wasn't easy. And a lot of people just see the stories, but they don't know what we go through to bring the stories to them, and that's the risk. And, for every risk we have taken, I think the right for the people to know is really important, and it's worth taking the risk for.
Every moment matters. Every decision.
A very warm welcome to you. This is News Night. Every night, we bring you the moments that matter, from the top to the bottom, and in every corner of our country. Many filling stations have several vehicles queuing to buy petrol, with some stations empty due to petrol scarcity.
Tell us what and who is responsible for this queue, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't understand any story right now.
The queues appear, they disappear. How long do you think this will last?
I wish there was a magic wand. I wish I could tell you that.
So, Newsnight has earned her place in what Arise News has to offer. We go on air every day, earning the trust of our viewers who have come to trust us when it comes to big political stories, whether it's the economy, whether it's health, in every aspect of life. There's something for our viewer on Newsnight. And we ensure that we provide level playing field for all political actors so that nobody is able to accuse Arise News of being one-sided or favoring one party against the other, and will not allow any political interference. That's what Newsnight is all about.
Why is Newsnight important? Well, we understand that there's a need to inform our viewers of the most important stories of the day, the stories that affect all of us. But we not only break those stories, we also seek the truth behind them from the newsmakers. Oh, thank you both gentlemen for being on the news tonight. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. Nothing is really free, is there? Some would say the only
free time.
Exactly, and the only free cheese you can find is in the mousetrap.
That's right.
It's been a decade of war and hostility, more so than many of us have seen in our lifetimes. To understand what's going on, you have to be where the news is, and that often means going into war zones and trouble spots. Our foreign correspondents continue to travel to some of the most dangerous places in the world.
This well-known bridge was hit in the capital, Kyiv. In the last months of 2022, hundreds of civilians have been killed by cruise missiles and drones supplied to Russia by the mullahs of Iran. At first, all seems normal in Mykolaiv. Ukraine is a country at war and checkpoints are part of life. But turn any corner and there's a stark reminder of the recent Russian assault. This is what's left of the Engel Hotel. The Kremlin denies deliberately hitting civilian targets, but a nondescript hotel? You have to ask the question, just why? The Russians also bombed this hospital for mental patients. There was an air raid alert, so fortunately, everyone was able to get down into shelters.
Muna Arir is getting ready for what should be the happiest day in her life, her wedding. But the war in Gaza has taken away the heart of her family, and now she wears black.
This Ramadan, we've had children killed and buried in front of our eyes.
When we went into Gaza for Arise News, we were covering a conflict so far away, another part of the world that people don't really understand what the details of that. And the challenge was this. You go to the people on the ground there. And that's what Arise News did. We told the stories of people who were really caught in the middle of this war between Israelis and militants in Gaza. So, for example, we talked to the families who were camped out at a hospital because of the constant shelling. And keep in mind, this was Ramadan, the height of Ramadan. Imagine that. And they were trying to, observe Ramadan and then break fast there. And at the same time, you had people still having their routines of maybe things like getting married, that being affected. And then, people who are traumatized. So we showed families at the hospital or a child starving for food. chewing on a piece of plastic. A young couple still determined, despite the war, determined to get married, and a young girl in a hospital bed, so traumatized, unaware that not only that her mother had been killed by the shelling, but also that she was paralyzed for life. Those are the kinds of stories we want to bring to Arise viewers.
And this was the scene this morning. First light showing the devastation. Flattened ruins still smouldering in the midst of high-rise towers. Tonight, central Kiev remains on full alert. Families here fear there'll be more attacks on shopping malls and other urban centres as President Putin attempts to terrorise citizens into submission.
Hal, thank you for joining us today. What exactly is happening and where exactly are you?
Well, what we know so far is that the Transitional Military Council, as you indicated, they've actually rejected an offer from the rebels to negotiate.
The southern city, fondly known as the Pearl of the Black Sea, was awash with a bittersweet air, sandbags and long goodbyes as romantic jazz rippled from the train station speakers.
John, as one of the channel's international correspondents, you've traveled the globe reporting on some of the most significant moments in our history. And another key event, significant event in history that you've reported on and been right in the thick of it in is the war in Ukraine, Russia's war on Ukraine. What was that experience like, John?
Well, getting there and getting into Ukraine in the first 2 weeks of the war last year was the first major hurdle. You can't walk into Ukraine, especially when war has just broken out, and they were only allowing trucks and cars in. So I got to the Polish-Ukraine border, and I had to flag down a car. It took about an hour to do that because everyone was coming out, no one was going in. And then this old lady turned up called Tatiana in this battered old vehicle. And I couldn't speak Ukrainian and she didn't speak English, but she got the idea that I wanted to get into Ukraine. And she bless her heart, she invited me into the car and we crossed into Ukraine, across the border. And the border was absolute chaos. There were thousands and thousands of people trying to get out. And me and Tatiana were the only people trying to get in. There was just kilometers of cars and trucks backed up on the other side of the border of people trying to get to safety. So that was the first introduction to Ukraine. I spent a few days in Lviv in the west and then went over to Kiev, where the war was having a devastating effect already in Kiev, with bombs falling, rockets falling all the time, and constant sound of sirens going. But it's very strange in that environment, and I experienced it before, that you get used to it. You hear the sound, the distant thud of a rocket, or even not distant, close by, an earth-shattering bang. And when you come out of the shock of it all, you realize that you're alive, you got through it. But this is something that Ukrainians are having to deal with almost every day of their lives. But strangely enough, you can get used to that kind of environment.
The global COVID pandemic was more dangerous than all war zones our reporters have visited. More than 6 million people have died of the disease so far, and Arise kept you informed on how to stay safe.
Coming up in the next hour, COVID-19's continuing grip on the world as the UK, America, Nigeria and the rest of Earth prepare for a major crisis. How are people living life in lockdown and self-isolation? How is the coronavirus changing life and culture around the world?
Stay at home for an initial period of 14 days, starting from Monday, 30th March 2020.
It's been 6 months now since the first case of the novel coronavirus was detected in Nigeria. Since then, we've had over 50,000 confirmed cases. About 36,000 people have survived, and unfortunately, we have lost about 1,000 lives.
Before going into the ICU, I was given personal protective equipment to put on. Using PPE and wearing it properly has become so crucial in the fight against COVID-19.
During this time, it's been tough sometimes, but you come in every day trying to do well by your patients, and that's what really drives me and the doctors here personally,
Now, Nigeria's battle against the coronavirus has been given a boost with the official opening of the This Day COVID-19 Testing, Tracing and Treatment Center here in Abuja.
A new dawn for This Day began with the handing over of its self-titled Dome Testing, Tracing and Treatment Center in Abuja. The effort was also powered by energy conglomerate Sahara Group. Well, inside this Day Dome, there are more than 270 beds available. Nigerian Health Minister, Dr. Sagie Ehanire, has commended the donations, describing them as a landmark collaboration between public and private sectors.
Strive for the best and prepare for the worst. So this edifice you see right here is serving that purpose of being able to help us prepare for the very worst.
Experience with past epidemics and knowing there was no escaping this. The reality that led frontline health professionals to act proactively. But just how much have they had to go through and experience over the past year? And how much progress has been made in the fight against COVID-19?
And little did anyone know that the world will be brought to its knees by a public health crisis. It's been 11 months since COVID-19 hit the world.
Elsewhere in the UK, scientists at the Imperial College of London will start immunizing people in Britain this week.
As the global outbreak of the coronavirus shuts down offices and factories, galleries and theatres, restaurants and bars all over the world, people are trying to figure out how to come together and lead as normal a life as possible.
Babatunde Taiwo, in collaboration with local police, arranged a group of residents to patrol the streets of their community when they realized they were under attack. He confronted a man who he believed to be a criminal. The confrontation ended with him being stabbed in the face.
As the days passed, it soon became clear that while this is one pandemic, it is made up of many stories.
I think Africa, unlike most continents, has been able to demonstrate resilience.
Since the pandemic began, South Africa has had the highest recorded number of cases on the continent, and this is despite the country imposing one of the world's strictest lockdowns.
Arise correspondent Aaron Akerejola joins me now as we reflect on the channel's coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hey, Aaron, how are you?
Oh, fantastic, I must say.
What a time that was, covering the COVID-19 pandemic from the studio to the field. We gave it all-round coverage, but it wasn't easy. Especially, it mustn't have been easy for you. I know you were at the forefront of reporting from within the studio on that. What was your experience like?
Every day it was a challenge because you're talking about tragedy can never be easy, especially for your mental health. So always putting yourself together to be able to report the issues and, more importantly, the misconceptions around COVID-19 and the misinformation around COVID-19, trying to sort all that out was quite hectic, I must say.
You know, I have to agree with you on that. And even though we didn't have as many cases here in Nigeria and across the continent compared to other countries in Europe and the Americas, etc., we still had it quite bad. And I think when I first realized was when I was reporting on this from the hospitals in ICUs where patients were pretty much just dying right in front of you. And that's when I realized just how bad it also was in Nigeria, because we knew that we didn't have as many cases as certain countries in the world, but I don't think it had hit me until I started reporting from the field in the hospitals, seeing people needing their lives to be saved, but you don't have enough oxygen. Where are the ventilators? But when I realized, Aaron, that things really aren't getting better was a year into COVID, reporting on COVID 1 year on, visiting general hospitals where there was still no space in the wards, and realizing that this is something that may be here to stay. And that was just quite a scary experience, because you know you have to push through it as a journalist, because that's your duty and that's your job.
It's one thing to be in the studio in a controlled environment and you're reporting cases and reporting issues from different countries. For you, how was it like being right at the center, knowing that being in that environment, one little slip, one little mistake, you could be down with COVID and not sure of how the body will react fully?
Especially when there were different strains as well, right? You know? that does bring fear. But I think at the same time, just me knowing that I'm a young person and I'm young, I'm healthy enough, and this is my job, I was able to sort of just overcome that mentally and go through with it and get it done. But I'm not going to say it didn't hit me and it didn't scar me. It did. I mean, I still have visions of people I saw in ICU. Basically, you know, when you see people fighting for their lives and it looks like they can't fight anymore, and you know that them looking at you is probably in their last few blinks of life, those are moments that do stick with you, forever. You're watching Arise at 10, a look at how we covered the big stories in Africa and around the world in our first decade on air. From day one, Arise has led the way in its coverage of music, fashion, and entertainment. We've brought the biggest stars and the biggest stories. Here are some of the highlights.
I'm lucky enough to be joined by actress, writer, femme fatale, also grandmother, looking absolutely stunning, Jo. Thank you very much.
As a grandmother. Yeah, I really want to be known for that.
Well, can I say that you look beautiful regardless?
And the 94th Academy Awards, otherwise called the Oscars, is underway. Arise News is taking the Oscars live. Sheshe is our correspondent here in Los Angeles.
Good afternoon from sunny Los Angeles, where all the stars are getting ready to shine. I'm Shishi Yang, right outside of the Dolby Theater, where we are just hours away from the most glamorous night of the year.
And I know that things don't only happen to me, so I want to set an example for women to be strong, women to be tough through adversity, through everybody telling you no, don't do that, everybody trying to silence you. Like, I want to be that person that encourages women to speak up, speak out. If something happened to you, say that. Don't hide it, don't hold it, no matter what nobody say. Speak your truth.
Yeah, I'm wearing Burberry. I don't know, I think because I'm always wearing all black, and I'm always in my trackie, so I said, you know what, let me shine today, you know.
Bitch, few people can handle, and I walk like I know my pussy dangerous. Talk like my words are made of angel dust. When I whisper to you in a couple languages, lo que quiero pa' mis besos en la espalda, pues como 100 millones de veces todo el día.
Arise Fashion Week 2023. This is the 20th edition. 20 glorious years of class, of beautiful fashion, and of course of setting major standards globally.
100 millones de veces todo el día. Es the only thing que me da alegría. Sabes que yo quiero hacerte cosas sucias y quemarte con estas caricias. Tu lengua en todo mi cuerpo, cuando terminas te quedas por dentro. Tu lengua en todo mi cuerpo y cuando terminas te quedas por dentro.
And Arise Entertainment correspondent Kachi Ufia joins me now in the studio. Kachi, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Several years of you ensuring that entertainment coverage on the channel is top-notch. What are some of your most memorable moments?
First of all, it's been completely exhilarating, to say the least. There's a conception of entertainment in Nigeria, which, for lack of a better word, would just simply be basic. So just do the regular interviews, but no one has ever really dared to go beyond the borders. So I'd say my most memorable moments would definitely be the international coverage. Arise 360 has done the Oscars. We do the Oscars every single year since I've joined. Even prior to when I joined Arise, we've covered the Oscars, the Met Gala, the Grammys, you know, varieties, fashion shows. It's just been amazing. I would say my most memorable would definitely be the Met Gala. Just standing there and screaming. I know, just screaming at those celebrities like, oh, hey, Angela, you know, whether it's Angela Bassett or you're trying to reach out to Megan Thee Stallion or you're singing lyrics to Camila Cabello's Bam Bam because that's the only reason she would speak to you, and then Variety's right there beside you, you know, just struggling for the mic. So it's Arise Variety, Arise Variety. So yeah, that was definitely one of the most memorable moments. It was a beautiful moment at the Met Gala, but the Oscars, it's very glam, it's very chic, but definitely nothing compared to the craziness on a Met Gala carpet.
And you know, one thing that's known about the channel is we are known for doing what we can to go big, from the biggest coverage to the biggest names. And you have interviewed some of the biggest names in entertainment over the past few years. Looking back at those interviews, what would you say stands out the most? What comes to mind as the most significant moments?
Arise 360 has been through different locations. Again, it is the flagship entertainment show. So Arise 360 has been to New York, Arise 360 has been to London, Arise 360 has been to South Africa, and now Arise 360 is in Nigeria. So when I started it, it was basically just entertainment news, but now it's grown beyond that. It's become a show where you need to understand what's happening on the global entertainment scene, not just the gossip, not just who is, you know, dating who and stealing whose husband. You're trying to understand the intricacies of how a film is produced, on how award nominees are selected, on how Disney makes its big bank decisions. You want to be watching Arise 360. And then it goes beyond that to the coverage, like I just mentioned, the Oscars. We don't just talk about these experiences, we live the experiences. So for every person I'm speaking about on air, I've most likely encountered at some point in my career. So it's a personal thing for me. Arise 360 is personal, and that's why the people watching, you're not just watching a Nigerian entertainment show, I'll tell you. Arise 360 is the global entertainment flagship show in Nigeria. I can say that for a fact.
10 years is a long time in the fast-moving media industry, but the vision is still as clear now as when the channel began. And I'm joined now for a look ahead by the man who began it all, our founder and chairman, Prince Nduka Obaibena. We've got to speak about the elephant in the room, one of the greatest achievements for Arise News as a channel. To be just 10 years old, but to have an Emmy to your name, that's a huge achievement, sir.
Well, it's due to the work of our journalists and storytellers from all over the world who put together perhaps one of the first Emmys out of Nigeria that I'm aware of, or even out of Africa. So Emmys, and winning an Emmy is a significant endorsement of our journalism and our storytelling. And we look forward to more Emmys over the next many years.
Let's look towards the future now as well, sir. What do you foresee over the next 10 years?
The world will change. Nigeria will change. As you know, we have a population dominated by the young. We have young people who are striving, who are building boundaries, who are becoming global. So we want to produce and support global champions out of Africa. Want to support global brands like the Dangotes, like whatever, out of Africa. I want to show that Africa can be, and Africa can, and Africa will do it.
And in terms of the channel itself, where do you see Arise News as a channel in 10 years?
We will be global. Right now, we have audiences of 250 million in 140 countries. We want to penetrate. We want to be in every hotel room. We want to be in every technology mobile phone. We want to be everywhere delivering news to everybody out of Africa.
And Nigeria has seen several challenges and plenty changes, especially since, well, you can go back to independence, but especially since our return to democracy in 1999. You've been in this news industry for so long, sir. Looking back at the course of events that we've seen happening in the country over the years, would you say that Nigeria today is better off, or are we worse off?
Nigeria will be better off because we have hope. Our journey to democracy has been a long journey. Some of us went on exile when the Abacha government came and came back and played a role in the new democracy. The democracy is a journey. It's not a destination. Yes, we all sit back most times and wonder how bad things are. But we forget some of the little strides we make in our lives. We forget some of the little things, little actions
that our leaders deliver. We are not happy with many of them, but I know that there is hope. I believe in Nigeria, I believe in Africa, and I believe in the future of the youth. And I think Nigeria will be a better place.
So that's Arise at 10. As you've seen in our 2 special programs, the only thing that's always certain about news is it's always a surprise. That's what makes it worth reporting. We'll have a lot more surprises, some good, some sad in the 10 years ahead. I hope we can meet again for Arise at 20. Stay with us.
Arise News, the first 10 years. And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Rotu Sodire will be here next to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's still the Arise News channel.
Hello there. Welcome to Able to Vote Guide. Able to Vote Guide is a voter education series to increase participation of registered voters with disability and, of course, the society at large. My name is Jake Epele. I'm the CEO founder TAF Africa. Let's begin. On today's episode, we will focus on your responsibility as a voter in Nigeria. Voter responsibility are those duties and obligations in which you, as a citizen of a state, are expected to get involved to demonstrate your love, commitment, loyalty, patriotism, and selflessness to the nation. Within the electoral process, such responsibilities are as follows: responsibility to register, responsibility to vote, responsibility to conduct yourself in an orderly manner, responsibility to keep permanent voters' cards safe, responsibility to enlighten others about the benefit of participation to help reduce apathy and ensure that a good number of voters participate in the process of electing their choice candidate. Remember that every person with disability participating in the electoral process has a legal right to priority voting. However, in a situation where you have lots of persons with disability in a polling unit, special queues should be maintained to quicken the process and give priority voting to persons with disability to cast their ballots with dignity and privacy. This message is coming to you from TAF Africa with funding from the European Union and support from our media partner. For more information on the activities of TAF Africa, follow us on our social media handle displayed on your screen. See you on the next episode. I remain yours truly, Jake Epele. Bye.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 Naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 Naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband buy.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
A day to remember in the history of our dear country, Nigeria. 9 wise men from the north who were governors came together on June 8th, 2022 to stand for equity and fairness in the interest of our nation, Nigeria. They buried personal interest for the unity of our country. They supported the call that power must shift to the south in 2023. They chose a Nigeria agenda. We salute our brothers and sisters in the northern part of this country who, in spite of their vote advantage, continue to propagate the unity of Nigeria by promoting rotational presidency between the north and southern part of the country. Let voters in the north follow the movement moved by these leaders, vote for power shift to the South. It's the turn of the South to produce the president in 2023. Let's vote Bola Tinubu for president for a renewed hope, a better Nigeria. Vote Kashim Shettima as vice president. Vote APC. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
It's never just your dream, but also of those close to you. It's never just your hustle, but also of those who believe in you. It's never just your disappointment, but also of those who share your hopes. It's never just your ambition, but also of those who have faith in you. Which is why it's never your success alone, but also of those who stood by you.
Nigeria has a problem.
A really big problem. The problem has made our country sick.
And we cannot remain sick for 4 more years.
Nigeria is sick with insecurity,
poverty,